The pregnancy test hit the marble floor before she could hide it. Stephanie Cooper was 31, a black private chef inside the Han mansion. She cooked for a family that never learned her last name. At 2 in the morning, she cooked for one man only. Han Min-jae, 36. Head of the Han clan of the Korean Mafia on the East Coast. They called him the Quiet One. A black dragon tattoo climbed his neck, red eyes glinting under the collar of his suit. He wore a wedding band. His wife slept upstairs. Stephanie wore an apron and a promise. He told her he would end it. He told her when the clan was safe he would come for her. She believed him. She fed him rice at 3 a.m. and let herself believe him. Then the test turned positive. Stephanie hid it in the trash under the sink. She never saw the pale hand that pulled it back out. She never heard the heels crossing the corridor. The next morning, Min-jae stood in the great hall. The butler, the maid, 2 guards, and a stack of documents on the table that Stephanie had never touched in her life. He looked her in the eye, and he accused her of stealing. She folded her apron on the table. She walked out pregnant, with no letter, no name, no explanation. But what she carried out of that mansion. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Stephanie tasted the broth with the back of a wooden spoon and knew he was in the house before the mansion's clock chimed 2. It was the 3rd night that week. She always tasted before he arrived, because tasting after him felt like a stranger stepping into her own hands. The kitchen of the Han estate ran along the east wing, a long room with copper pots hanging in ordered pairs, and a stone floor that held the cold. Stephanie stood at the center island. A single lamp burned above the range. She wore a robe of ivory cotton over a plain nightdress, her hair loose down her shoulders in soft waves, and she had rolled the sleeves to the elbow. On the counter sat a bowl of scallions, a jar of gochujang, a bottle of soy so old the label had softened, and a small ceramic dish of sesame seeds she had toasted herself an hour before. The house was asleep. She knew that because Mr. Park had passed the corridor at 11, and Mr. Park did not pass twice. She stirred the broth once, adjusted the flame, and heard the door. Min-jae did not knock. He never did in the kitchen, though he knocked at every other door in the house. He walked in still in the trousers of his suit and the white shirt, the tie gone, the top 2 buttons undone. The dragon at his neck slid up out of the collar in fine black ink, its eyes a small red. He shut the door behind him. He turned the lock. "You started without me," he said. "You were late. I was in Seoul. Seoul was yesterday." He crossed the stone floor to her, and only then did his face change. Outside this room he wore a face carved to sit at the head of long tables. Inside this room he was a man who had come home. He set his phone on the counter with the screen down. He looked at her. His mouth moved in the small smile she owned. "I brought the fish," he said. "You brought a bag. The fish is in the bag." She turned the flame lower. He came around the island and stood behind her, close enough that she felt the warmth of him through the robe. He didn't touch her yet. He put one hand on the marble beside hers and read the pots. "Doenjang?" he said. "Not tonight." "Anchovy?" "Guess again." He leaned in. He smelled the steam. He closed his eyes for a moment. He named it beef bone, 6 hours. 7. Show off. He laughed once, low. It was a laugh he had nowhere else in the house. She heard it, and let herself smile before she reached for the salt. They cooked. She let him work the fish because he had learned to gut it the year before, and he liked doing it with the small knife she kept for the purpose. He rolled up his cuffs. The dragon at his neck moved when he moved. The gold band on his left hand caught the lamp once, and he saw her see it. He set the knife down. He slid the ring off and laid it on the ledge above the sink, where it always went, and he picked the knife back up. "You always do that after I look," she said. "I always mean to do it before. One night you'll forget." "One night I won't need to remember." She did not answer that. She turned the broth again. He worked the fish. The first time he had walked into this kitchen at this hour had been 11 months earlier. Stephanie had been the estate's private chef for 3 weeks. She had been finishing a stock she couldn't leave. He had come in for water and stayed for the stock. He had asked what her mother cooked. She had told him about her mother's collard greens and her mother's cornbread. and the pot her mother stirred with a wooden spoon that had a scorched handle from 30 winters. He had listened the way a man listens when he has forgotten what listening is. Then he had asked, in a voice that startled him more than her, whether he could sit and watch her finish. She had said yes, because she had not yet learned to say no to him, and because she wanted him to stay. That had been 11 months, and they had moved from the stool to the counter, to the pantry, to the small room behind the pantry where she kept the good rice, and from there to the truth of what they had become. He plated the fish onto a shallow bowl. She poured the broth. They ate at the island, standing, from the same bowl, with 2 spoons. She fed him a piece of the flesh with her spoon because his hands were still wet. He took it from the spoon and did not look away. "How long tonight?" she said. "Until 5. "You should sleep." "I can sleep when you make me." "Then sleep." "Later." He set his spoon down. He put his hand on the back of her neck, under her hair, and she felt the cold ring finger where the band no longer was. He kissed her once, slow. She tasted salt and scallion and the wine he had drunk with the men in the black cars. "I want to tell you something," he said. "Then tell me." He did not tell her yet. He walked to the pantry. He came back with a small pouch of raw brown sugar and a jar of black vinegar. He did not need them. He needed his hands to do something while he decided what he was going to say. She had learned him well enough to know that. "There is a room in the north wing," he said. "You have never been in it." "I know the room." "You know it exists. You have not been in it." "I know it exists," she said. "That's enough. It is my father's room. My father is not there anymore, but the room is his." "I know. When my father died, the elders of the clan came to that room, and they sat on the floor, and they told me what I was going to do." She waited. "They told me who I was going to marry." The broth cooled a little between them, the steam thinned. "Victoria," Stephanie said. It was not a question. She had said the name aloud only twice in 11 months, and each time it had sounded like something she had swallowed the wrong way. "Victoria, I know what she is to you. You do not know what she is not. Then tell me." He put the sugar down. He put the vinegar down. He came around the island again and stood in front of her, close, but he did not touch her. "She is a signature on a page," he said. "She is a photograph on a Christmas card that goes to the governor. She is the name that keeps the hotel in Boston. She is the last thing my father gave me before he stopped breathing, and I took it because there was no other hand to hold." "Minjae, I did not kiss her the night we married. I have not kissed her since. She sleeps in the west wing. I sleep in the east. We pass each other in the driveway. I did not ask you what she is. You did. You just didn't use words." She looked down at the bowl. There was a small piece of fish left. She pushed it toward him with her spoon. "When?" she said. He knew what she meant. "When the vote in Busan closes," he said. "When the harbor deal signs. When the elders sit again and I sit at the head. How long? 6 months, maybe 8. 6 months I can do. 8? 8 I can do. 10 I cannot. 10 is not the number. 10 better not be the number." He put his forehead against hers. He breathed once. He did not close his eyes because he wanted to see her. "Stephanie, say it. I am going to be free of her by the spring." "Say the year." He said the year. She held it in her mouth like broth she was not going to swallow yet. Somewhere in the west wing a door opened and closed. He heard it before she did. His hand moved to her wrist and stayed. They listened. The house did not move again. He let go of her wrist. "Mr. Park," he said. "Mr. Park is asleep. Mr. Park is never asleep. He has never come to this door. He knows this door." She looked at him. "He knows?" "Mr. Park knows everything that happens in this house. He was my father's man before he was mine. He has known since the 3rd week. And he has not told her. He will not tell her." "How do you know?" "Because I asked him not to. And because he loved my mother, and my mother would have loved you." She did not answer that either. She turned to the sink. She washed the spoon slowly. She rinsed her hands. She put her hands flat on the marble and steadied her breath. "There is another thing," she said. "Tell me." "Not tonight. Stephanie, not tonight." He looked at her back for a long moment. He did not press. He had learned not to press her. He picked up the ring from the ledge above the sink. He did not put it on. He put it in his pocket. "You are keeping something from me," he said. She looked at the pot. The broth had stopped moving. 2 nights. 2 nights. Give me 2 nights. Why? Because I want to be sure before I give it to you. He accepted that. He had accepted things from her he had never accepted from any human being. He set the ring's outline against his thigh through the pocket cloth, and he watched her wash the second spoon. "Come with me," he said. "Where?" "The garden. It is January. I will get you the coat. You cannot walk in the garden with me. Someone will see. Not the front garden, the one behind the greenhouse. No one goes." She dried her hands. She followed him. He took a wool coat from the hook by the servant's door and put it over her robe himself, one sleeve at a time, and buttoned the top 3 buttons. She let him. He put his own overcoat on. They stepped out into the cold. Their breath went up in slow columns. The greenhouse stood at the far end of a gravel path. Beyond it, hidden by a wall of yew, was a small square garden with a stone bench and a fig tree that had lost its leaves. He led her to the bench. He did not sit. Neither did she. "When I was 7, he said, my father brought me here. This bench. He told me that when I was old enough he would give me the clan. He told me I was going to eat glass for the rest of my life, and I was going to smile while I did it. He told me I would never be able to love a woman who did not come from the families." She waited. "I have eaten the glass," he said. "I have smiled. I know. I am going to stop. I know. I want to marry you, Stephanie." She looked at the fig tree. "You are married. I am going to stop being married. When you stop being married, come and find me. I have found you. Come and find me when your left hand is empty, then say the sentence again." He looked at his left hand. He looked at her. "Say what you were going to say 2 nights from now. No. Please. No, 2 nights." He was quiet a long time. The wind moved through the yews behind them and did not reach the bench. He reached into the pocket of his overcoat and drew out a small object wrapped in a square of cotton. He unfolded the cotton in his palm. Inside was a wooden spoon, small, carved from a single piece of pale wood. The handle was smooth. The bowl was shallow. On the base of the handle, where a maker would sign his work, 2 letters had been burned in with a hot wire. SM. "I had it made in Gyeongju," he said, "the village where my grandmother was born. There is a man there who has been carving spoons for 60 years. I asked for one. He asked me for the letters. I gave him 2. She did not take the spoon. "It is not a ring," he said. "It is a spoon. I am a coward. I could not walk into a jeweler with the diamond still on my hand. Put it away. Stephanie, put it away. When your hand is empty, bring it out again, not before." He folded the cotton. He put the spoon back in his pocket. He kept his hand on the pocket a moment longer than he needed to. Then he took her hand and put his lips to the inside of her wrist. Once, quickly, as if he were sealing a letter. Then he stepped back. "Go inside first," he said. "I will follow." "Min Jae." "Yes. If she finds out, she will not find out. If she finds out, I will handle her. You do not know what she is. I know exactly what she is. You do not." He did not answer that. He watched her walk back up the gravel path toward the servant's door. Her robe moved once in the wind. She did not look back. The next morning at 7, Victoria Sinclair came down the west staircase in a slate cashmere and heels the color of bone. Her hair was already set. Her diamond caught the chandelier the way a knife catches a window. She walked past the breakfast room without looking in and into the small conservatory, where a silver pot of tea was waiting, because it was always waiting. Mr. Park stood at the door with a folder under his arm. He bowed 1 inch. He offered the folder. Victoria took it. She did not look at him. "Where is my husband?" she said. "In his study, madam." "Since what time?" "Since 5, madam." "He didn't sleep." "He slept in his study, madam." She sipped the tea. She read the folder. The folder held the week's guest list, the week's expenses, and a smaller sheet clipped at the back. She read the smaller sheet twice. "Who is the woman on the last page?" "The chef, madam, Miss Cooper." "The one from the agency?" "Yes, madam." "How long has she been with us?" "Nearly a year, madam." "Is she good?" "She is very good, madam." Victoria set the folder down. She looked toward the east wing, where the kitchen was, where the man she had married sat at a desk pretending to have slept there. Increase her salary, she said. Madam? Whatever the agency is paying her. Add a quarter. I want her happy. Yes, madam. And Mr. Park. Madam. Please have her come and see me at 4. About what, madam? Victoria smiled, small, closed. About the menu for the March dinner. Yes, madam. He bowed. He left the conservatory. He walked down the long hall past the portrait of the elder Han and past the door of the east study, where he did not knock. He walked into the kitchen. Stephanie was at the sink pressing a lemon. Miss Cooper. Mr. Park. Mrs. Han would like to see you at 4 this afternoon in the west sitting room, regarding the menu for the March dinner. Stephanie set the lemon down. She dried her hands. Yes, Mr. Park. He looked at her a moment longer than was needed. His face said nothing. His eyes said something she could not quite name. Then he was gone. She stood at the sink for a long time. The lemon rolled once and stopped against the rim. At 4, she walked into the west sitting room in her white dolman jacket and black apron, freshly pressed. Victoria was already seated by the window in a pale chair, one leg crossed over the other, the diamond turned toward the light. She did not stand. She gestured to the smaller chair across the low table. Miss Cooper, please. Mrs. Han, sit. Stephanie sat. She kept her back straight. She kept her hands folded in her lap. I am told your work has been excellent. Thank you, Mrs. Han. My husband speaks very well of your soups. Thank you, Mrs. Han. He rarely speaks well of anything, so, thank you. Victoria smiled. Her mouth moved. Her eyes did not. For the March dinner, I am hosting 22 guests. Senator Lyle will attend. His wife has a shellfish allergy. Governor Aldrich will attend. He does not eat pork. My mother-in-law from Seoul will attend. She does not eat anything cooked in Western butter. I would like the menu on my desk by Friday. Yes, Mrs. Han. And Miss Cooper. Yes. I would like the menu to be Korean. Fully Korean. Not fusion. Not, as they say, elevated. Korean. Yes, Mrs. Han. Can you do that? Yes, Mrs. Han. Victoria studied her. Stephanie felt the study. She did not shift. You are a very calm young woman. Thank you, Mrs. Han. How old are you? 31, Mrs. Han. No husband. No, Mrs. Han. No children. There was a beat before Stephanie answered. It was a small beat. She kept her hands still. No, Mrs. Han. Well, that is convenient for your career. Yes, Mrs. Han. You may go. Stephanie stood. She bowed 1 inch. She walked out. She kept walking until she was in the kitchen. She stood at the island. She put both hands on the marble to hold the marble still. The marble did not move. Her hands did. She went into the small pantry behind the range and shut the door. She reached to the back of the shelf where the flour was, and behind the flour she pulled out a small paper bag. Inside the bag was a thin cardboard box. Inside the box was a wand of white plastic with 2 clear windows. She looked at it. She had looked at it 12 hours before, and she had not stopped looking at it in the 12 hours between. 2 lines, bright pink. The lines she had washed her hands over and had not been able to wash off. She put the wand back in the box. She put the box back in the bag. She put the bag in the pocket of her apron. She closed her eyes and she felt the small warm ridge of it against her hip. 2 nights, she had told him. Give me 2 nights. She had 1 left. She stepped out of the pantry. Marisol was at the door of the kitchen with a basket of laundry. Marisol smiled at her, small and quick, and moved on down the hall. Stephanie let out the breath she had been holding since Marisol had appeared. She went back to the counter. She wrote out the March menu. She wrote it in her clean, small hand. Kalbi jimchum, sundubu, japchae kongnamul muchim, doenjang jjigae with the mother's clay pot. She wrote for an hour. She did not look up. At 6, she folded the menu into an envelope and set it on the tray Mr. Park would carry to the west wing at 7. She washed her hands. She washed them again. The apron on the hook by the door held the small ridge of the box in its pocket, and every time she passed the door, she felt the ridge from 3 feet away as if it had a weight. At 8, the house came alive around her. The morning maids came through. Marisol came through with fresh linen and asked whether she needed lemons. Stephanie said no. Marisol looked at her a beat longer than a linen question required, and then she was gone. Stephanie did not know what Marisol had seen. She hoped nothing. She hoped a small thing. She hoped, for a moment that surprised her, that Marisol had seen the ridge in the apron and understood the ridge, because there was a comfort in the idea that another woman in the house knew a thing before the wife did. She caught the thought and folded it away. She did not want a comfort that lived on Marisol's silence. At 10:30 that night, the mansion was dark again. Mr. Park had passed at 11. Stephanie moved the wooden spoon in a broth she did not need to make. Her hand was steady. Her heart was not. At 2, Min-jae did not come. She waited. She stirred. She turned the flame down. She turned it off. She stood at the island in the ivory robe with her hair loose and her hand on the counter, and she waited. At 2:15, a car left the driveway. She heard it more than she saw it, a low sound that carried through the stone. She did not know whose car. She only knew it was not the one that brought him home. At 2:30, she sat on the stool at the corner of the island. She put her hand on her stomach, flat, under the robe, and she left it there. She had not put her hand there in the 12 days she had known. She had been afraid that the hand would settle something she was still trying to decide. Now the hand settled it. She left it there for a slow count of 10, and she felt nothing move, because nothing yet could move, and she felt everything move anyway. She thought about her mother, Eleanor Cooper, who worked 40 years in a cafeteria in a hospital in a small city in the north of the state, who came home at 9 each night and made cornbread at 10, and taught her daughter that a stove was a place where a woman could think. Her mother did not know about Min-jae. Her mother knew there was a job in a big house. Her mother knew the name of the family only because Stephanie had said it once in November. Her mother had said the name back once, softly, and had not asked another question. She thought about the March menu on the counter, and the small woman in the pale chair with the diamond turned to the light. She stood up. She waited until 3. At 3, she heard a footstep in the hall that was not his. She turned. The door opened. Victoria stood in the doorway in a pale silk dressing gown, her hair still perfect, the diamond still on her finger. She held a small folded paper in one hand. Miss Cooper. Mrs. Hahn. I could not sleep. I came for water. Of course, Mrs. Hahn. Stephanie went to the tap. She poured a glass. She set it on the counter between them. Victoria did not take the glass. She looked at the counter. She looked at the 2 spoons that were still drying on the rack. She looked at the empty ring's outline where the lamp had polished a small clean spot on the ledge above the sink. She set the folded paper down on the counter next to the water. You dropped this, she said. In the small pantry. I thought you would want it back. Stephanie looked at the paper. It was the receipt from the pharmacy on 3rd Avenue. The date was 2 days old. The item at the top of the receipt was the one item that mattered. Victoria smiled her small closed smile. She turned. She left. She left the water on the counter and the paper beside it. Stephanie did not move for a long time. Then she picked the paper up. She folded it small. She put it in her apron pocket beside the box. She looked at the door Min-jae had not come through. She said his name once, very quietly, to no one. The house did not answer. Stephanie put the receipt in the drawer under the tea towels and closed it slowly, so the wood would not click. She counted to 10. She counted to 10 again. Then she washed the glass Victoria had touched, dried it, set it back on the shelf with the mouth turned down. The kitchen looked the same. She knew it wasn't. She sat on the stool by the island and pressed both palms flat against the marble. Cold moved up her wrists. She stayed like that until her breathing found a shape she could work inside. 2 options. Wait for Min-jae or find him. Waiting meant Victoria acting first. Victoria had already acted first once tonight. She untied the ivory robe, folded it over her arm, and went up the servants' stairs to her room. She dressed in the black pants and the white dolman, the plain professional cut, hair pulled back low. She put the pregnancy box and the receipt inside a folded linen napkin and slid the napkin into the deep pocket of her apron. She tied the apron. She checked her face in the small mirror above the sink. The face gave nothing. At 4:15, she went down through the east corridor to Min-jae's study. The door was closed. She knocked once, no answer. She tried the handle, locked. She turned to leave, and Mr. Park was standing at the end of the hallway with a folded newspaper under his arm. He is at the port, Mr. Park said. His voice was quiet. The car returned an hour ago and left again. He will be back before the house wakes. She held his eyes. He held hers. Thank you, Mr. Park. Miss Cooper. He hesitated. In 11 months, she had never seen him hesitate. Whatever you have to say to him, say it before 8. She nodded. He walked past her without turning his head. She waited in the kitchen. She did not make coffee. She did not touch the stove. At 5:40, a car came up the long drive and stopped in the service loop. She heard the door of the mudroom open. She heard him wipe his shoes twice on the mat, the way he always did. He came into the kitchen without his overcoat. His tie was gone. There was a red mark on the side of his neck where he had pressed his knuckles against it, the way he did when he had been sitting still for a long time trying not to move. He saw her at the island and stopped. You waited. I need to tell you something. He looked at the door behind her. He looked at the clock. He walked to the sink, ran the tap, splashed water on his face once, twice. He took the towel off the ring and pressed it to his eyes. Say it. She took the linen napkin out of the apron pocket and set it on the marble between them. She opened it. The pregnancy box, the receipt. She watched his face. The color went out of it in stages. First the mouth, then the space under the eyes. His hand, still holding the towel, lowered to the counter and stayed there. When? He said. 12 days ago. How? She waited. He put the towel down and picked up the receipt. He read the address. He read the date. He put it back on the linen the way a man puts down something that could break if he was clumsy. Who else knows? She did not answer immediately. Stephanie. Victoria. His head came up. He looked at her, the way he had looked at the peeled fish in October, understanding what it was, and what it was going to require of him. Since when? 3 hours ago she brought me this. She touched the receipt with one finger. She stood where you are standing. She left. He put both hands on the edge of the counter. His shoulders went down half an inch. He was thinking. She could see him thinking. It was the same face he wore in the study when the Busan file was open in front of him, and someone on the other end of a phone was trying to sell him something that was not for sale. Sit down, he said. I don't want to sit. Sit down. Please. She sat. He walked around the island and stood beside her. He did not touch her. He put one hand flat on the marble next to hers, not covering it, just next to it, and left it there. I will handle this. How? I don't know yet. In the next hour. Give me the hour. The house wakes at 8. I know. He picked up the linen napkin, folded it around the box and the receipt, and put it inside his jacket, in the inside pocket, over his chest. He closed his hand once around the outside of the jacket to feel the shape of it there. Then he took his hand away. Do not leave the kitchen until I come back. Min Jae. Do not leave the kitchen. If anyone comes in, you are preparing breakfast. You know nothing. He left through the service door. She sat at the island with her hands in her lap. She counted the tiles on the floor. 24 across, 32 down. She had counted them before, on other mornings, when she had been counting other things. At 7:15, she heard the first house sounds. A vacuum in the west hall, a door on the second floor, the smell of the coffee she had not made. At 7:40, Mr. Park came through the swinging door with a silver tray and stopped when he saw her. Prepare breakfast for 6, he said. In the main dining room. Mrs. Han is coming down. She did not move. Miss Cooper. Yes. 6 settings. Congee, fruit, toast. 20 minutes. She stood. Her legs were fine. She was surprised by that. She moved to the stove. At 7:55, Min Jae came into the kitchen from the office side. He was in a fresh suit. His tie was on. His face had been rebuilt. Come with me, he said. He did not look at her when he said it. She wiped her hands on the apron and followed him through the swinging door and down the long hall toward the main dining room. He walked 2 steps ahead. When they reached the double doors, he stopped and let her go in first. 6 people were in the room. Victoria at the head of the table in a cream cashmere robe, hair perfect, coffee untouched in front of her. Mr. Park by the sideboard. 2 of the security men she had seen only from windows, both standing with their hands folded in front of them. Marisol Vargas at the far end of the room with an armful of clean linens, pretending to fold. On the table, in the exact center of the polished wood, was a stack of documents in a manila folder. The folder was open. The top page had a Han Group letterhead. Victoria looked up. "Miss Cooper, thank you for joining us." Stephanie did not speak. She looked at Min Jae. Min Jae had gone to stand behind Victoria's chair. He put one hand on the back of the chair and left it there. "There has been a theft," Victoria said. She spoke to the room, not to Stephanie. "Sensitive material relating to my husband's business. It was found 40 minutes ago in a place it should not have been. I have asked Mr. Park to explain to Miss Cooper where it was found." Mr. Park's face did not move. He did not look at Stephanie. "Under a floorboard," he said. "In the pantry off the kitchen, behind the 50-pound bag of flour." Stephanie's hand went to the edge of the apron pocket before she could stop it. She made the hand come back down. "Miss Cooper," Victoria said, "do you have anything to say?" "I have never touched those documents. I did not ask if you had touched them. I asked if you had anything to say. I have never touched those documents." Victoria smiled with the corner of her mouth only. "Han Min Jae," she turned her head slightly toward the man behind her chair. "This is your house. This is your staff. The decision is yours." Stephanie looked at him. He was looking at the folder on the table, not at her, at the folder. The silence went on for 4 seconds. She counted them. "Effective immediately," Min Jae said. His voice was low and flat and belonged to a man she had never met. "Miss Cooper's employment is terminated. She will collect her personal effects and be escorted from the property within the hour. There will be no letter of reference. Any attempt to seek future employment through the Han Group network will be met with a formal complaint." Marisol's hand tightened on the linens. Mr. Park closed his eyes for one long beat and opened them. Stephanie did not look at Min Jae's face again. She was afraid of what her own face would do if she did. She untied the apron behind her back. She lifted it over her head. She folded it in half, then in quarters. She walked to the table and set it beside the folder, aligning the edge of the apron with the edge of the polished wood. "May I retrieve my things?" she said. "Under supervision," Victoria said. "Mr. Park will accompany you." Min Jae's voice again, still flat, still not his. She turned. She walked out of the room. Her back was straight. Her chin was level. In the servants' hallway, she paused with one hand on the wall for 3 seconds. Then she kept walking. In the hallway outside the dining room, one of the security men had already been sent ahead. She could hear his shoes on the tile of the servants' corridor. Another followed her at a distance of 6 steps. Not close enough to touch her. Close enough to make sure everyone who saw them passing understood what was happening. A housekeeper stepped out of the linen closet with folded towels, saw the procession, and stepped back inside without a sound. Mr. Park followed her up to her room. He stood in the doorway while she packed. She packed the way she cooked. Fast, exact, no wasted movement. 2 bags. She left the ivory robe hanging in the closet. She left the small mirror on the sink. She took the enamel pot her grandmother had given her mother, and her mother had given her. She took the wooden spoon set from her drawer. Her hand paused over the top drawer. Inside, under a folded scarf, was a photograph of her mother on the porch in the green cardigan. She lifted it out with 2 fingers and slid it into the front pocket of the bag. She left the scarf. The security man in the hall shifted his weight. Mr. Park did not turn his head. She did not take anything from the pantry. Mr. Park walked her down the back stairs and out through the service door. A car was waiting in the loop with the trunk already open. The driver did not speak. She put her bags in and closed the trunk herself. Mr. Park held the passenger door. "Miss Cooper." "Mr. Park." He looked at the ground and then at her. "I saw where the flour was moved." She waited. "I saw who moved it. I will remember." She held his eyes. "Thank you." She got in. The door closed. The car rolled down the drive. She did not look back at the house. At the end of the drive, the driver turned north on the highway without asking where she was going. He had been told. She sat with her hands folded in her lap and watched the guardrails go by. Somewhere near the second exit, she put her hand on her belly, low and flat, and left it there. 4 hours later, the car stopped in front of a small white house with a green porch on a quiet street in a town she had left at 18. Eleanor Cooper was standing on the porch in her cardigan, with a dish towel in her hand. Eleanor did not ask a single question. She took the 2 bags off the porch, put them inside the door, and pointed her daughter at the kitchen table. There was cornbread wrapped in a checkered cloth. There was a jar of honey. There was tea already steeping in the brown pot with the chip in the lid. Stephanie sat down. She looked at the cornbread. Her eyes filled, and she blinked it back. "Eat first," Eleanor said. "Tell me second, or don't tell me at all. Either way." She ate, 2 pieces, then a third. She had not eaten in 26 hours. She told her mother at the second cup of tea. Not the whole thing, the shape of the thing, the pregnancy, the termination, no name. Eleanor did not press for a name. "You'll stay here," Eleanor said, "as long as you need. The room upstairs is the same as it was." "Mama, I can't." "You can, and you will. And when you can't stand it anymore, you will get up and go do the next thing. That is how it works." Stephanie put her forehead down on the checkered cloth. Eleanor rested one hand on the back of her daughter's neck and left it there. The pregnancy went easy. Her mother's town was slow, and slow was what her body wanted. She walked the 2 miles to the small library every morning. She read cookbooks she had already read. She made lists. She priced small commercial kitchens in 6 cities she was never going to move to, and 1 city she might. She did not open a single social media account. She did not call anyone from her old life. She let the phone in the hall stay on the hook. Elijah was born in the county hospital where his grandmother had worked the cafeteria for 40 years. Eleanor made cornbread and brought it to the maternity ward, wrapped in the same checkered cloth. The nurses aided in the break room and asked for the recipe. Eleanor said no. The baby had his mother's eyes. He had his father's dimples. Stephanie saw the dimples the first time he yawned. She held her breath for a full second. Then she kissed the top of his head and did not say anything about it. Then, or later, to anyone. She named him Elijah, after her grandfather, and Cooper, after her mother, and nothing else. She went back to work when he was 7 weeks old. A caterer in a town 40 minutes away needed a second pair of hands on weekends. She took the shifts. She brought Elijah in a carrier and slept him in the back of the kitchen on a folded quilt while she plated hors d'oeuvres for weddings held in barns. When Elijah was 8 months old, she got a call for a chef's position at a boutique hotel across the state line. She took the interview. She was told she was the strongest candidate in the room. 2 days later they called and said the position had been withdrawn due to a restructuring. 6 weeks after that, she interviewed at a high-end retirement community that catered private meals. Same result, strongest candidate, then withdrawn. The 3rd time it happened, she stopped being surprised. The 4th time, she stood in the phone alcove in her mother's hallway with the receiver against her ear and said thank you very calmly and hung up and walked out to the back porch and sat down on the step and put her hands over her face for 1 minute exactly. Then she got up and made dinner. Elijah, 6 months old that week, was on a quilt in the sun with his fist in his mouth. He watched her come down off the porch and lifted the fist and offered it to her. She sat on the grass next to him and let him grab the end of her braid. "We're going to be all right," she said. Not to him, to herself. "We are." He blew a bubble and closed his eyes. Inside, Eleanor was chopping onions. She did not look up when Stephanie came back through the screen door. "That was the 4th one," Eleanor said. "4th. Then the 5th won't be a call. The 5th will be you walking in with a plan." Stephanie went to the sink and washed the grass off her hands. That night she wrote a list on the back of an envelope. Cities where she had no professional network. Cities where no one had heard her name. Cities small enough that a stranger could open a door. At the top, she wrote a town in the Hudson Valley she had passed through once on a bus. She moved with Elijah when he was 14 months old. The first year in the new town, she cooked out of a small commercial kitchen she rented by the hour above a laundromat. She sold meal kits, weekly boxes for 8 families, then 12, then 20. The families told other families. She raised the price twice. She did not advertise. She did not use her old professional name on anything printed. Everything went out under Cooper. Just Cooper. At year 2, she leased a food truck. A rusted white step van with a fryer that had to be coaxed. She parked it 4 days a week outside the farmer's market and served 3 items: a slow-braised beef sandwich, a rice bowl with kimchi and scallions, and a scallion-flecked bone broth in a paper cup with a plastic lid. The line was 30 deep by 10 in the morning within a month. She still did not advertise. There was one afternoon in the middle of that second year, A man in a wool overcoat came to the truck window at 11:40 on a Wednesday. He ordered the beef sandwich. He paid in cash. He stood off to one side and did not eat. He watched the truck. He watched Elijah, who was 2.5 then, playing with a wooden spoon on the fold-down counter. Stephanie watched the man in the reflection of the polished stainless behind the fryer. At 12:15, he threw the sandwich away in the public bin, still in its paper, and walked toward a black sedan parked across the street. The sedan had rental plates. He got in the passenger side. It drove off. She served the next customer without looking up. Her hand was steady on the tongs. Her hand was steady when she took the money. Her hand was steady when she counted the change. That night, after she put Elijah down, she sat at the kitchen table of the small apartment above the laundromat and wrote a new list on the back of a menu draft. Not a list of cities, a list of names. People she trusted, people she did not. She left the second column longer than the first. She folded the paper and put it in the drawer with the bills. She did not run. She raised the price on the sandwich the next week and kept working. Somewhere in the middle of year 3, a food writer from a regional magazine took a photograph of Elijah in the truck. He was almost 3. He was standing on a milk crate stirring the broth pot with a wooden spoon almost as tall as he was. She let the photograph run because they had promised no names. They ran it with the caption, "The young sous chef of Cooper's." 3 days later, a woman from a real estate office in the town walked up to the truck window and slid a business card across the counter. "There's a vacant space on Water Street," the woman said. "You should see it before anyone else does." Stephanie saw it that afternoon. 32 seats. A back kitchen with a working hood and a bad floor. A brick wall that would clean up. The rent was less than she had expected. The landlord was a woman whose grandmother had come from Seoul. Stephanie signed the lease on a Wednesday. The renovation took 9 months. She did most of the small work herself in the evenings after the truck closed. Her mother came down on the bus twice and spent a week each time helping tile the small pastry corner. Elijah spent his 4th birthday sitting on an overturned bucket in the empty dining room eating cornbread out of the checkered cloth. She named the restaurant Cooper's in block letters. Just the word. No tagline, no graphic. The sign went up on a Tuesday afternoon in early September, hand-painted by a man who did the signs for the town's bookstore and hardware store and nothing else. She opened on a Friday. The first night, 43 covers. The second, 61. By the end of the second week, she was taking reservations 2 weeks out. The morning after the opening, she took Elijah to the small city park at the end of Water Street and sat on a bench while he ran after pigeons. Her feet were swollen from the service. Her back ached in a place she had not felt since her second trimester. An older woman on the next bench looked over at Elijah, smiled, and looked back at her. "He has your eyes," the woman said. "Thank you." And someone else's smile. Stephanie's hand tightened around the paper coffee cup. She loosened it deliberately. "Yes." The woman went back to her newspaper. Elijah came running with a pigeon feather held above his head like a trophy. She took the feather and thanked him and tucked it into the pocket over her chest. It stayed there through the walk home. The restaurant was reviewed twice in the first month by writers she did not know. Both reviews were good. Neither mentioned Han. Neither mentioned Mansion. Neither mentioned any of the people she was afraid, some nights when she could not sleep, might read the article and remember the shape of her hand. She started sleeping better in the 3rd month, not because she was less afraid, because she was tired in a way that money could not fix and only work could. The dolman was white, the apron was burgundy. She had chosen the color because it was the color of the wine she and her mother had bought for the opening dinner, which they had not gotten around to drinking because Stephanie had been on the line the whole night, and Eleanor had been washing dishes. The apron had Cooper's embroidered on the chest in cream thread. Elijah's apron, Minnie, matched hers exactly. She hired 1 line cook, then 2, then a pastry cook. She kept the menu small, 6 starters, 6 mains. Always a version of the scallion-flecked bone broth, always a version of the slow-braised beef, always something with kimchi that changed weekly. She was 36 years old. Her son was 5. She had not spoken Han Min-jae's name out loud in 5 years and 2 months. On a Thursday in April, a courier came to the back door of the restaurant with a heavy cream envelope on a small silver tray. He asked for Stephanie Cooper by name. He said the sender wished her to receive it directly. He waited. She dried her hands on the burgundy apron and took the envelope. The paper was thick. The seal on the back was a small pressed dragon, stamped in wax the color of dried blood. She looked at it for 3 seconds. Then she broke the seal. Inside was a single card, cream stock, cream ink, no letterhead. An invitation to the Han Group Autumn Culinary Festival, first weekend of May. The Pier Hotel on the Hudson. 12 chefs from the region. Blind tasting. Winner takes a 2-year supply contract for the hotel chain. Under the printed lines, a handwriting she had not seen in 5 years. 3 words in blue ink. Please come, chef. Stephanie read the card twice. She turned it over. Nothing on the back. She looked at the courier, still waiting on the step. He handed her a second envelope, smaller, and left without a word. The second envelope held a check. $10,000, cashier's cut, drawn on a bank she did not recognize. Application fee, the memo line said. She put the check under the salt cellar on the prep counter and set the invitation beside it. Then she went to the walk-in and pulled out the box of scallions. Elijah was at the pass, standing on his stool, working the peeler on a piece of ginger. He held it the way she had taught him, thumb underneath, blade away. She watched him for a moment. His hair had grown again. The curls climbed off his crown in soft coils. He did not look up. Mama? The ginger is fighting me. Turn it so the grain runs down. He turned it. The peel came off in a clean strip. He grinned without lifting his face, and the 2 small hollows appeared, one at each corner of his mouth, deep and perfectly placed. Stephanie went back to the walk-in and shut the door behind her. She stood in the cold for a full minute with her hand on the metal shelf. When she came out, she wrote 3 lines on the order pad. Call Eleanor, call the landlady, do not answer the door for a courier again. She did not call anyone yet. Service was in 4 hours. Friday night pulled 62 covers. Saturday hit 70. On Sunday morning, the dining room smelled of thyme and cold coffee, and Stephanie sat at the corner two-top with the card in front of her and a mug going cold in her hand. Eleanor was on the line from the bus station. How much is the fee? 10,000. You have 10,000. I have 11, barely. Then you can afford to lose it. That is not the point, Mama. Then what is? Stephanie looked at the doorway that led to the back stairs. Elijah was up there, still asleep. She heard the fan of the reach-in cough and settle. She heard a truck pass on Water Street. The point is, he wrote 3 words on the bottom. Please come, chef. Eleanor did not answer for a beat. Then she said, What do you want me to say? I do not know. I will tell you what your grandmother told me. You do not go looking for the man. You go looking for the answer. If the answer is at that hotel, you go to that hotel. If it is here, you stay here. Stephanie held the card and turned it in her fingers. The answer might be my son's face, Mama. Then bring him. No. Then leave him with me. Stephanie looked at the ceiling. The bus horn blew on Eleanor's side of the line. I will call you back. She hung up. She walked to the pass and picked up the ginger Elijah had peeled. It was clean, no waste. She wrapped it in damp cloth and put it in the low fridge. At 4 in the afternoon, she filled out the application. Cooper's, 32 seats, Water Street, chef and owner Stephanie Cooper. 3 dishes for blind tasting, chef's choice. She wrote the 3 dishes on the second sheet without stopping to think. Braised short rib in the 7-hour broth, silken tofu stew with scallion oil, a bowl of steamed rice with a single soft egg and pickled radish. She signed the last page and sealed the envelope. Marta from 2 blocks down was going to the post office anyway. Stephanie handed her the envelope and paid the postage and walked back to the restaurant slow, hands in her apron pockets, thumb closed around nothing. The days after felt narrower. She cooked. She did payroll. She read to Elijah on the back stair. She ordered a second case of scallions for the trial run. On Wednesday of the second week, a letter came from the festival committee. Accepted. Slot 14. Kitchen Station 4. Hotel service floor. Arrive Friday by 2. She did not tell Elijah. She told the landlady. The landlady, whose name was Mrs. Yoon, closed the cash register and looked at her a long time. Then she said, You cook for that man, you cook for you. Not for him. You understand what I say. Stephanie understood. Thursday she packed 2 knife rolls, a small pot she had brought from the mansion 5 years ago, a jar of scallion oil she had made that morning, and a folded chef coat still in the plastic. Eleanor arrived by bus at 4. She kissed Elijah's forehead and took his bag and did not ask a single question. Elijah asked one. "Where are you going, Mama?" "To a hotel." "Why?" "To cook for people who are going to decide something." "Do you want to?" She looked at him. He held the small wooden spoon she had bought him at the farmer's market last spring, the one he called the tasting spoon. "I do not know yet. I would go." "You would? You would?" "I like hotels." She kissed the top of his head. His hair smelled like the shampoo Eleanor had brought. "Be good for Grandma." "I am always good." That was a lie, and both of them knew it. Stephanie laughed a small laugh from the back of her throat and picked up her bag. The drive down the river was 2 hours. She took the coastal road because it was slower and she wanted the slowness. She thought about Min-jae once and put the thought away. She thought about the pantry floor of the Han mansion and the folded apron on the edge of the table and put those away too. She thought about the 7-hour broth and the exact minute she would set it going tomorrow morning. She counted backward from 6 p.m. to figure out the start time. 11. She would start at 11. The Pier Hotel came into view a little after 7. Glass on the water, tall, cold-looking, a soft gold on the top floors from a low sun. She parked in the staff lot and walked her bag through a service door with a red badge clipped to her collar. A man with a clipboard checked her name, waved her in, and pointed to a hallway lined with prep kitchens. Station 4 was in the middle of the row. Steel counter, 1 gas, 1 induction, a small oven she would only use for the eggs. She unpacked. She hung her coat on a hook by the door. She wrote a prep list. She went to bed by 10 in a small room upstairs and slept without dreaming for the first time in 6 months. Friday she prepped from 11 to 4. She strained the broth twice. She set the tofu at 3. Once she had the pot at exactly the right temperature. She soft-boiled 20 eggs and picked the 4 best. She rested. She ate a sandwich she had brought from home. She did not go into the ballroom to look at the judges' table. She did not go to the lobby to see who was checking in. At 5:40, a runner tapped on her door and told her to plate at 6:05. She said thank you. She washed her hands twice. She put on the coat. She tied the maroon apron with Coopers embroidered in cream. She stood at the counter with her 3 dishes lined up and looked at them for a long, slow breath. Then she took them to the pass. The ballroom had been staged blind. Each chef sent plates through a curtain by number. The judges never saw the cook. Slot 14 sent at 6:09. Stephanie handed the tray to a runner and stepped back. She waited by the curtain because she wanted to hear. The first sound was a fork on porcelain. Then a small hum, a critic's hum, low and neutral. Then silence for what felt like a minute, but was probably 10 seconds. Then a chair scraped back. Then a voice she had not heard in 5 years and 2 months. "Bring the chef." She did not move. I said bring the chef. The head judge, a man with a bow tie who she would later learn was named Daniel Whitmore, stood up and looked at the curtain. He said something quietly to the runner. The runner walked through the curtain and looked at Stephanie. "They want you at the table. They are not supposed to. He is asking." She looked at the maroon apron. She looked at her hands. She untied the apron once and retied it tighter. Then she walked through the curtain. The ballroom was long, low, warm lit. A single table down the center. 6 chairs on each side. At the head, Whitmore. Halfway down on the left, in a charcoal suit and no tie, sat Han Min-jae. He had gone thinner. That was the first thing she saw. Not weak thinner, carved thinner. The line of his jaw was sharper. There was a new gray at the temple. The dragon still climbed the right side of his neck. His hands were open on either side of the plate. The soft egg had not been cut. He was not looking at the plate. He was looking at her. She held his gaze and gave a small nod, the kind a chef gives a room she does not know. Then she looked at Whitmore. "You wanted to see me." Whitmore cleared his throat. "This is not standard, but a member of the panel has asked for a word. If you consent." "I consent." Min-jae stood. He did not walk to her. He waited for her to walk to him. Then he tipped his head an inch, the way a man tips his head to acknowledge a stranger of equal weight, and he said, "Chef Cooper." "Mr. Han, you made the broth this morning. 11 o'clock. You strained it twice." "I always strain it twice." He looked at the plate. He looked back at her. "The scallion oil. Made this morning. Same ratio. Same ratio." He nodded once. Then he said, quiet enough that only she and Whitmore could hear, "May I taste in front of you?" "Please!" He sat back down. He picked up the spoon. He cut the egg. Yolk ran into the broth in a slow curl. He lifted the spoon to his mouth and closed his eyes for exactly 1 second. He set the spoon down. He opened his eyes. "Thank you, chef." She waited. "That is all." She turned and walked back through the curtain. She did not look at anyone. She went to station 4 and sat on the stool and put her palms flat on the steel counter. She waited for her hands to stop. They did not stop for a while. The results came at 8. Slot 14 took first. The prize was announced through a speaker at the door of the prep hallway. A contract for 2 years, 350 covers a week at the hotel's flagship room. Terms to be signed Monday morning. Stephanie heard it. She did not go to the ballroom to receive the announcement. She packed her knives, she packed her pot. At 8:30, a runner knocked on her door and said, "Mr. Hahn would like a word in the terrace lounge." "Tell Mr. Hahn the chef has to drive home to her mother. He said you would say that." "Then he understands. He said if you would give him 1 minute, he would come to you." She stood at the counter. She looked at her folded coat. 1 minute. The runner left. Stephanie put her hand on the back of the stool and breathed. The door opened again a moment later without a knock. Min-jae stepped in and closed it behind him and stayed by the door, 3 yards from her. Neither of them spoke for a beat. "I will not keep you." "Good. I did not know it was your kitchen when I signed the invitations. I do not care. I understand." She looked at him then, straight. He held it. "Ask what you came to ask, Mr. Hahn." He hesitated. His hand went to his coat pocket and stopped. He drew the hand back empty. "How old?" "Excuse me? How old is he?" She held very still. The steel of the counter under her palm was cold. He was not asking a question. He was asking permission to have heard something he had already worked out from a broth and a scallion oil and a name printed on an apron. "He is 5, she said. He did not move for 2 seconds. Then he closed his eyes. Then he opened them and inclined his head, once, the way a man bows to a debt he cannot pay in the room he is standing in. "Thank you, chef. Do not thank me. I will not come to your restaurant." "Good. I will sign the contract Monday. I will not be in the room. My people will handle it. You will never have to see me again, if that is what you want." "That is what I want." "Understood." He turned to open the door. His hand was on the knob. He stopped. "May I ask his name?" She did not answer for a full breath. "No." He nodded, once, and he left. Stephanie stood at the counter for a long time after the door clicked shut. She did not cry. She did not sit. She put the last of her prep in the pot and lidded it and lifted her bag and walked to the car. The drive back was 3 hours because she took the long road again. She got in at midnight and let herself in the back. Eleanor was on the sofa with the reading light on and a book open on her chest. Elijah was asleep upstairs. Stephanie sat on the arm of the sofa and Eleanor closed the book and did not ask. "I won. I heard." "How?" "The woman at the coffee shop told me at 9. Cooper's took first at the Pier Hotel. News travels." "News travels." They were quiet. He was on the panel. "I know." "How?" "Mrs. Yoon called me on Thursday. She said the Han group runs the festival. You did not tell me." "You would not have gone." Stephanie looked at her mother. Eleanor was 78 years old, and she had never told a lie to protect anyone from what they had to hear. This was as close as she had come. "He asked me his age." "And you told him?" "I told him 5. Eleanor set the book on the coffee table. She reached up and put her hand on Stephanie's cheek, palm flat, thumb along her jaw. Her hand was warm and dry. "That was the answer, baby. Not his. Yours. I know. Now sleep." Stephanie slept 4 hours, dreamless. At 6:30 on Sunday morning, she was in the kitchen at Cooper's, breaking down a case of onions. Elijah came down at 7 in his mini apron, and she handed him a small knife and let him practice thin slices on a peeled shallot. He worked in silence for 10 minutes. Then he looked up. "Mama? Was the hotel nice?" "Yes." "Did you win?" "Yes." "Was it the man who wrote, 'Please come'?" She stopped. She rested the knife on the board. She looked at her son. His face was open. He was 5. He remembered every card that came into that kitchen because he liked to read the words he could read and ask about the ones he could not. Yes. Was he nice? He was polite. That is not the same. No, it is not. He looked back down at his shallot. He kept slicing. Then he said, "Are we going to see him again?" "I do not think so." "Okay." He was satisfied, or he pretended to be, which for a 5-year-old is the same thing. Monday at 9, the contract came in by courier. Same courier, different envelope. Cooper's, 2 years, 350 covers a week. All products sourced through the restaurant suppliers of choice. All menu decisions in the chef's hands. Kill fee of 2 years' revenue if terminated by the hotel without cause. Stephanie read it 3 times. It was a clean deal. It was more than clean. It was written like someone had put a lawyer in a chair and said, "Make it impossible for her to say no, and impossible for us to hurt her later." She signed it at 11. She sent it back by 2. Wednesday afternoon she was doing inventory in the walk-in when she heard the bell over the front door. Elijah was up front doing his letters at the 2-top by the window. She heard him say, in his clear 5-year-old voice, "You have to wait to be seated." A man's voice, low, kind. "I will wait." Stephanie came out of the walk-in with a clipboard in her hand. Han Min-jae was standing just inside the front door. He was in the charcoal suit again, no overcoat. Elijah was looking up at him from the 2-top with a wooden pencil in his hand and the tasting spoon in his lap. Min-jae was looking at Elijah. She saw it happen. She saw the moment his eyes went from the boy's eyes to the boy's mouth, and she saw Elijah smile at him the way Elijah smiled at any adult who was polite, the wide one, the one that showed both hollows at once. She saw Min-jae's face do a thing she had never seen it do in 11 months of knowing him 5 years ago. It broke, quietly, at the corners, and reset in the same second, and only she could tell it had broken at all. "You said you would not come," she said. He did not take his eyes off the boy. "I lied," he said. "I am sorry." Elijah put the pencil down. He looked at his mother. He looked at the man in the suit. He tilted his head the way children tilt when they are working something out that they do not have the word for yet. "Mama." "Yes, baby." "Who is he?" Stephanie held the clipboard tight against her ribs. She looked at Min-jae. Min-jae looked at her, and he did not answer for her. He waited. She stepped forward and put her hand on Elijah's shoulder. She did not move her eyes off her son. "He is a man," she said, "who came to eat here." Elijah looked at Min-jae. He said, very seriously, "You still have to wait to be seated." Min-jae inclined his head to him with the same weight he had inclined it to her at the festival table. "I will wait, chef." Elijah frowned. "I am not a chef. You are wearing the apron." "I am the helper." "Then thank you, helper." Elijah nodded, satisfied, and went back to his letters. Stephanie steered Min-jae to the 2-top by the bar with a hand that did not quite touch his sleeve, and she sat him down, and she did not sit with him. She stood. "You have 5 minutes." "I do not need 5. "Then talk." He looked at his hands on the table. He looked at the boy in the window. He looked back at her. "He is mine. He is mine." "I know." "Say that again." "He is yours." "I understand." She waited. "I did not come here to ask for anything." "Then why did you come?" He took a breath. He was choosing his words the way a man chooses stones out of rice. "I came because I have spent 5 years believing 4 separate lies. I found out the first one this morning. I need to know how many more there are. I cannot find out sitting in a house on the coast. That is not my problem." "I know. What are the lies?" He looked up at her then. His eyes were the same eyes, and they were not the same eyes. "That you stole, that you left, that there was no child, that the person who told me the first 3 was on my side." Stephanie went very still. The clipboard was cold under her hand. Across the room, Elijah was humming a small tune from a cartoon. "Say the name," she said. He said the name. "Victoria." She closed her eyes for 1 second. She opened them. "Get out of my restaurant." "Chef." "Get out. Come back Friday at 3 when the boy is at his grandmother's. Bring what you have, and bring a lawyer." He stood. He did not argue. He walked to the door. Elijah looked up as he passed. "Bye, waiting man." Min-jae stopped at the door. He looked back at the boy. His voice, when it came, was steadier than his face. "Goodbye, helper." The bell rang once as the door closed behind him. Stephanie stood in the middle of her dining room with a clipboard against her ribs and her son humming in the window seat and the smell of onions from the walk-in coming in slow across the floor. She looked down at her left hand. The ring finger was bare. It had been bare for 5 years and 2 months. Friday was 36 hours away. She walked back to the kitchen and picked up her knife. The knife found the cutting board, and the cutting board found a rhythm, and the rhythm was the only thing that kept Stephanie's hands from thinking about themselves. 36 hours until 3 o'clock Friday. She chopped scallions she did not need, and diced onions she would freeze, and, when the board was full, she cleared it and started again. Elijah wandered in around 6, colored pencil behind his ear. "Are we mad, Mama?" "We are working. Same thing sometimes." She stopped the knife long enough to look at him, 5 years old and already reading her wrists. She kissed the crown of his head and sent him to set the two-top by the window with 2 forks he did not need. Thursday she opened Cooper's for lunch, which she almost never did. 22 covers. She cooked every plate herself. Sra-Yoon came at 2, took a stool at the pass, watched her work for 10 minutes, and said, "You are not sleeping." "I am not." "Good. Sleep after Friday." Sra-Yoon slid an index card across the pass. "A phone number, 7 digits, no name. This woman is an investigator. She works quiet. She works for chefs like you. I paid her retainer 4 years ago on your behalf. I never called her. Today you might." Stephanie folded the card into the pocket over her heart. "Why now?" she asked. "Because a man who eats your soup twice and then comes to your restaurant is a man who is going to want more than a receipt. And you should know who else has been looking at your kitchen for 5 years. Stephanie called from the walk-in at 3:40. The woman on the line said only, "Kim, speak." Stephanie spoke for 4 minutes. Kim listened. Kim said, "I have most of it already. Give me until Friday morning." Then the line was dead. Eleanor arrived by bus at 9 that night with a canvas bag and a paperback and the same steady face she had worn on the porch 5 years ago. She held Elijah on her hip like he weighed nothing, though he weighed a great deal now. "You called a woman," Eleanor said, without asking. "I called a woman." "Good." They ate cornbread at the pass with butter that had gone soft. Elijah told his grandmother about the letters he had drawn, and the man who had come to eat, and how the man had said goodbye, "Helper, not goodbye, kid." Eleanor nodded and buttered his cornbread, and did not look at Stephanie once until Elijah was asleep in the office cot. "Baby," she said then, "whatever the woman brings you tomorrow, remember, you are not asking for permission, you are handing him the bill." Friday at 8 in the morning, a courier arrived at the back door with a padded envelope, no seal, no return address. Inside were 62 pages, a flash drive, and a single sheet of Kim's own handwriting listing the exhibits by number. Stephanie carried it to the office and closed the door. She read for 2 hours. She did not cry, she read. Exhibit 1. The delivery receipt from a private courier the morning of her dismissal, showing a manila folder signed for by Victoria Sinclair at 4:50 in the morning, 1 hour before Min-jae came home from the port. Exhibit 2. The phone log of the housekeeping supervisor showing a call from Victoria's line to the pantry storage account at 5:02. Exhibit 3. An interview with Marisol Vargas, notarized, 2 weeks old, in which Marisol described watching a man in a gray suit she had never seen before move the 50-pound sack of flour with 2 hands and slide the manila folder under the loose board at 5:11. Exhibit 4 was longer. 4 separate employment offers rescinded, each with a follow-up communication from a shell entity registered to a Delaware LLC whose sole officer was one Kwon Do-sung. A boutique hotel in the fall she had a baby, a retirement community, a country club, a private residence in Greenwich. Each offer killed within 36 hours of acceptance, each followed by a letter to the employer suggesting the applicant had been terminated from the Han estate for theft and would open the employer to litigation. Exhibit 5 was the man in the wool overcoat. Photograph. Snow Wolf, older than Min-jae, silver hair back, a scar across the left brow. Standing on Water Street the summer Elijah was almost 3, one hand on the door of a sedan, one hand pointing at the food truck. The date stamp on the corner matched Stephanie's own memory to the day. Exhibit 6 was a set of wire transfers dating back 6 years. Payments from a Sinclair family holding company to a Quan Group intermediary, 6 figures each, quarterly, marked consulting, but tied by Kim's tracing to a shipping route that ran parallel to the Han port deal Min Jae had spent his career building. Exhibit 7 was 1 page. A handwritten note from Victoria to Snowwolf, dated 2 months before Stephanie's dismissal. 6 words. The chef is the fastest way. Stephanie closed the folder and set her hand flat on top of it. She sat like that for a long time. At noon, she called Srayun. Thank you. Are you going to give it to him? I am going to make him read it. That is not the same thing. I know. At 2:45, she braided her hair back and tied a fresh apron and set a pot of water on to boil, for no reason other than to have steam in the room. Eleanor took Elijah to the library. Stephanie unlocked the front door at 2:59. Min Jae came alone. No lawyer. She noticed the empty ring finger before she noticed his face. I sent him home, Min Jae said, before she asked. I did not want a lawyer between us. Sit. He sat at the two-top by the window, in Elijah's chair. She placed the folder in front of him and pulled the other chair around so she was beside him, not across. She wanted him to feel the paper the way she had felt it that morning. She wanted the room to be small. Read. He read. He read for an hour and 11 minutes. She poured him 1 glass of water. He drank half. When he reached Exhibit 7, he set his hand on top of the page like a man covering a wound, and his shoulders moved once, exactly once, and then he was still. He closed the folder. How did she keep me quiet for 5 years? He asked, not to Stephanie, to himself, to the folder. Then to Stephanie, you did not send the woman. Srayun did. Srayun paid her retainer. I made the call. Then you have been carrying this since the year I lost you. I have been carrying something. This is only the shape of it. He put his hands on the table, palms down, and looked at his palms as if he had never seen them. She had a photograph, he said, the night of the dismissal. She had a photograph of a boy. She said the boy would not survive the year unless the chef confessed. What boy? My cousin's son. He was 7. He lived in Seoul. He was already gone, actually. He died of a fever 10 days before that morning. She had bought a photograph from a driver and told me it was recent. I did not know he was gone. I found out from my aunt in June. Stephanie did not answer for a while. I am telling you why, Min Jae said. I am not telling you it was enough. It was not enough. No. You said the words in that dining room. I did. You said them in front of Mr. Park, and in front of Marisol, and in front of 2 men whose names I never learned. You said them so cleanly the whole house believed them by lunch. Yes. And I dobre the apron and walked out Eretta, and had a child in a county hospital, and worked 8 months with him, tied to my back, and moved to a town I chose from an envelope, while you sat in that house believing a photograph of a boy who was already dead. Yes. That is what I needed you to say out loud. I have said it. She stood up. She walked to the pass and came back with 2 small white cups and a bottle of soju that had been in her freezer since the day she signed the lease. She poured for him first, then for herself. It was not a celebration. It was a witness. There is more, she said. You are going to help me with it. Not because I need help, because you owe it. He nodded. Tomorrow morning your wife will find out that a chef in a small town has 62 pages with her name on them. She will not find out from me. She will find out from a reporter I have not called yet, and she will find out from the head of the Han board I have not called yet, and she will find out from a state prosecutor who is going to receive Exhibit 6 on Monday, whether we speak or not. Understood. You will file for divorce this afternoon. I have already filed. 9 o'clock this morning, before I read the folder, before I knew about the boy, before I knew about Quan. She let that sit. Why? She said. Because Wednesday night I looked at a two-top by a window and I saw a 5-year-old with my mouth and my dimples and my mother's serious eyes, and I understood that I had been living for 5 years next to the woman who told me none of that existed. It did not matter what she had. It only mattered what she had cost. Cost me. Cost you. Cost him. Cost my mother who died believing she had no grandson. Cost my aunt in Seoul who buried the wrong boy. He set his palm flat on the folder again. There is one more page you did not see, he said. It is not in this folder, it is in mine. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and drew out a small envelope, cream, sealed with wax, no dragon. He set it on the table between them and did not open it. "Not today," he said. "When you decide." "When I decide what?" "When you decide whether there is a room at your table for a man who spent 5 years believing a photograph." She looked at the envelope. She did not touch it. "There is a lot to do first," she said. "There is." Saturday, the story broke on the 4th page of the Sunday Times business section, an early release scoop with 3 named sources and Kim's exhibit numbers redacted but referenced. By 9 on Sunday morning, Victoria Sinclair's attorneys had issued a denial. By 11, the Han board had suspended her signing authority on the family trust. By 2, the district attorney's office had accepted the wire transfer materials for review. Snow Wolf's people went to ground in a way that suggested they had planned for this weather and were only surprised it had come from a small kitchen on Water Street. Stephanie did not speak to the press. Kim did that for her, in 3 sentences, from a New York number. The 3 sentences were, "The chef is running a restaurant. The chef will not be commenting. The chef's counsel will be commenting shortly." On Monday morning, Min Jae drove to the mansion at 7. Mr. Park opened the door. Mr. Park had been the man Victoria trusted to move flour, and he had been the man who had watched who moved flour, and he had been the man who had sat in a car 5 years ago and whispered UV. Min Jae stepped into the foyer, and Mr. Park closed the door behind him and said, in Korean, "Sir, your wife is in the sunroom." "She is not my wife." "No, sir." Min Jae found Victoria at the tea table, in a cream dress, the diamond still on her finger because no one had told her yet that it did not mean anything. "I read a folder," he said. "Everyone has been reading things this weekend. There was a photograph in it, of a driver, in Seoul, from October." She held her cup very still. "There was a note," he said. "In your hand." "You cannot prove my hand." "Kim can." He set the cup back on the saucer for her, because her fingers had stopped working. "The board has suspended you. The prosecutor is opening on Monday. My attorney has filed. Mr. Park will pack the East Wing today. Marisol will pack the West Wing tomorrow. You will be off this property by Wednesday. Min Jae, do not." He walked to the door. He turned once. He did not raise his voice. "You told me a boy would die if I did not say the words in that dining room. He was already dead. You bought a picture. You made me kill the mother of my son on my own tongue. You do not get to say my name." He closed the door behind him, and Mr. Park was already halfway up the stairs with 2 empty suitcases. Wednesday, Stephanie kept Cooper's open for lunch and dinner and did not check her phone. Thursday, she cooked 40 covers at lunch and 62 at dinner and did not check her phone. Friday morning, Elijah sat at the pass in his mini apron and stirred a bowl of egg for scrambled eggs with the concentration of a surgeon. "Mama?" The waiting man came again. She turned. Min Jae was standing at the front door. He held nothing. He did not come in. She wiped her hands and walked out into the sun. "I have a favor to ask," she said before he could speak. "Ask. There is a children's cooking contest at the community center Saturday. Elijah has been practicing his egg for a month. There is a boy in his class named Bradley Whitfield, whose father owns a hedge fund and whose son has been telling my son that his mother is a maid. I would like you to sit in the back row and not stand up no matter what happens. Can you do that?" "I can do that." "You are going to want to stand up." "I know." "You will not." "I will not." Saturday at 11, the community center was full, and the folding chairs were the kind that hurt the small of the back. 6 children at 6 little stations. Elijah in his mini apron with Cooper's in cream thread, his hair combed by Eleanor, a wooden spoon in his fist. Bradley Whitfield Jr. in a starched white shirt and a plaid bow tie and a navy vest. A private school apron over the vest. A chef's toque that was too big. Daniel Whitmore, incongruously, was one of the 3 judges. He had come as a favor to the town, which had asked him because his name was on a bow tie he had worn at a festival. He smiled at Stephanie from the judges' table and did not indicate that he knew her. The children cooked. Elijah cracked 3 eggs and did not drop a shell. He whisked with 2 hands. He seasoned with a pinch of salt and 1 grind of pepper, and a drop of the sesame oil his mother had put in a tiny bottle for him. He turned the heat down and folded the eggs the way she had shown him 100 times. Bradley Whitfield Jr. cracked 4 eggs and got shell in the bowl, and turned the heat all the way up and cooked the eggs into rubber. Then, waiting for the judges, he turned to Elijah and said, in a voice pitched to Carrie, "My dad said your mom used to be a maid in a big house and got fired for stealing." Elijah went still with the spoon in his hand. In the back row, Min Jae's shoulders moved once. He did not stand. Stephanie's hand found the edge of her chair. She did not stand either. Bradley pressed. "My dad said you don't have a dad because your mom didn't know his name." Elijah looked at his eggs. Elijah looked at his spoon. Elijah looked at Bradley. "My mom," Elijah said, "cooked for a boss and now she is a boss. My mom knows my dad's name. She just does not say it because she is busy. Also, your eggs look like erasers." The room made the small sound a room makes when it has decided a thing. Daniel Whitmore, at the judge's table, put down his pen and picked up a fork. He tasted Elijah's eggs. He tasted Bradley's eggs. He tasted Elijah's again. He announced the winner without ceremony, and the room clapped, and Bradley's father, in a light gray suit, did not clap. Elijah walked off the little stage with a paper medal on a red ribbon and went directly to his mother and put his face in her apron and did not cry. Stephanie kept one hand on the back of his head and the other on the arm of her chair, because if she took her hand off the chair, she was going to walk to Richard Whitfield Sr. and say something she would not be able to unsay. Min Jae was already standing at the door when she looked. He had not stood in the room. He had stood only when the room was over. He held the door for Eleanor and Elijah and the medal and the mini apron, and he did not touch any of them. Outside on the sidewalk, he said, quietly, "You did not let me protect him. I let you sit. That was harder." "I know. He did it himself." "He did." She looked at him for a long second. She saw the 15 inches of sidewalk between them, and she did not close it. "There is a place," she said, "on the pier. The one that used to be the Han flagship. The board reassigned the lease on Wednesday. The paperwork went to my attorney this morning. The building, the equipment, the contract, all of it, transferred at value $1 to a Cooper's LLC, in which you have no share and no signature." He did not blink. "You are giving it to me," she said. "You are not gifting it. You are returning it. That is the word my attorney used, and it is the word I want you to use when you sign on Monday. Returning. Yes. To the chef the house took. To the chef the house took." "Understood. There will be a Cooper's on the pier by fall, 350 covers a week. My menu, my people, my name over the door. Your contract folded into the reassignment as a lease credit, so the 2-year term still runs, but you are not the landlord and you are not the guest. You are a former party who paid a debt." "Understood. That is the reparation. It is not romance." "I know. Say it back. Reparation, not romance." "Good." She turned to walk Elijah home. He did not follow. He stood on the sidewalk with the sun on the dragon at his neck and the ring finger empty, and the empty hands he had promised her once, 5 years ago, in a garden behind a greenhouse, would one day be empty when he came for her. "Chef Cooper." She turned. He reached into the inside pocket of his coat and drew out a small object wrapped in a square of dark cotton. He unwrapped it in his palm. The wooden spoon from Kyungju. The grain of it was warmer than she remembered. The letters S and M, carved by an old man who had lived above the shop. "I have carried this 5 years," he said. "It has never been in my house. It has been in a bank box on 57th. I moved it to my coat on Wednesday morning after I filed. I have been waiting for a day to hand it to you when my hands would be empty." "They are empty," she said. "They are." He held the spoon out on his open palm. He did not step forward. "I am asking," he said. "I am not asking for a yes, and I am not asking for today. I am asking whether there is a room at your table for a man who spent 5 years believing a photograph, and who is coming to it with nothing but a wooden spoon and a name he would like the boy to know when the boy is ready. The boy decides when. Not me, not you, him." Stephanie looked at the spoon. She looked at Elijah, who was 3 steps ahead on the sidewalk, holding Eleanor's hand, turning to check that his mother was following, the paper medal swinging at his chest. She looked back at Min Jae. She lifted the spoon from his palm and set it in the pocket over her heart, the same pocket that had held the pigeon feather and the investigator's index card, and the receipt from the Third Avenue pharmacy, and every other small paper thing that had kept her upright. "There is a room," she said. "The door is not open yet. It is not closed either. You will earn the key by the week, not by the grand gesture. Sundays for 6 months. Lunch at Cooper's. You sit at the two-top by the window. You wait to be seated. You order what the helper recommends. When the helper is ready to ask you a question, you answer it. When he is not, you eat your soup and you leave. If you miss a Sunday without a reason a hospital would accept, we do not do this." "Yes. You do not tell him yet." "No. He tells me when he is ready to know, and then I tell him, and then he decides whether he wants to hear the rest from you. That is the order. That is the order. There will be no ring in this until the helper puts a ring in it." "Understood. Say your name." "Han Min-jae." "Say the boys." "Elijah Cooper." "Good." She turned again and walked to catch Eleanor and Elijah on the corner. She did not look back. The spoon in her pocket was small and warm through the cotton of her dolman. Cooper's on the Pier opened in October. 350 covers a week. A full wait list. A bar seat kept open on Sundays for a man in a gray coat who ordered whatever the 5-year-old at the pass recommended, ate his soup, and left before the check. On the 7th Sunday, Elijah, wiping his hands on his mini apron, walked to the two-top by the window without being told, sat down across from the waiting man and said, "Mama says you are the one who wrote Please Come. She says one day you and me are going to have a long talk. Not today. But she says I get to pick the day." Min-jae set his spoon down. He nodded once, slowly, the way a man nods when a house that has been standing on one leg finally sets the other one down. "I will be here," he said, "on the day you pick." "Okay," Elijah said. "Now eat your soup. It gets cold." At the pass, Stephanie watched them through the steam and did not wipe her eyes because her hands were full of a plate for table 9. The ring finger was still empty. It would stay empty for a while. That was fine. Some hands are not for rings. Some hands are for spoons, and for the small dark head of a boy who does not yet know he is a Han, and for the door of a restaurant that opens because a chef unlocked it herself. Outside, the Hudson went by the way rivers do, and inside, a house that had once cost her everything gave her back a room at last, and this time, the room had her name on the door. The call came on a Tuesday, at 2:41 in the afternoon, and Stephanie was pulling ribs off the smoker when the phone in her back pocket buzzed against her hip. She ignored it once. It buzzed a second time before the ribs were on the tray. She set the tray down, wiped her hands on the Vinho apron, and read the screen. The school. She stepped into the walk-in for the quiet and answered on the 4th ring. The voice on the line belonged to the front desk woman, and the front desk woman was choosing her words slowly. There had been an incident at pickup. Elijah was fine. Elijah was safe. Elijah was in the nurse's office. Could Stephanie come now? What incident? A pause. The woman said a man had approached the fence during outdoor recess and had spoken to Elijah through the chain link for approximately 90 seconds before a teacher noticed. The man had walked away when the teacher walked over. Elijah had not screamed. Elijah had not moved. The teacher had brought Elijah inside. Describe the man. Older, silver hair, dark coat, foreign accent, the teacher thought. She said Korean, maybe. Stephanie hung up. She put the phone on the shelf beside a bucket of cured lemons and stood very still for one breath, then walked out of the walk-in and told her Suze, Marcus, to close the ribs at the low setting and to run service without her. Marcus asked no question. He had learned in 6 weeks not to. She was in the car in under 2 minutes. The school was 7 blocks. She drove them like they were 7 miles. She parked on the loading zone and left the hazards flashing and went in through the front office and signed her name so hard the pen skipped. Elijah was on the nurse's cot with his sneakers on the floor and his mini Avental folded into a square on his lap. He looked up when she came in. He did not cry. He said, "Mama." The man knew my name. She sat on the cot and put her hand on the crown of his head. She did not squeeze. Which name? Elijah Cooper. And then he said the other one. She waited. Han Elijah. He said it clean, like he had been practicing not to be scared of it. He said Han Elijah, and then he said your name too, both of them. She kept her hand where it was. She looked at the nurse over the top of his hair. The nurse mouthed the words, "He's okay," and slipped out. What else did he say? Elijah put both hands on his knees. He said my dad has enemies. He said my dad has enemies from a long way away, and one of them wanted to shake my hand. He said his name was a wolf. He said, tell your mother the wolf sends love. And he said the wolf did not forget the man who watched the truck. Elijah looked up. His face did the thing it had done the day of the contest. The too serious face. Mama, what truck? She said. A truck we used to have. Before. It's a story for later. Is later today. Later is soon. She did not let him see the second thing that moved in her chest. It was not fear. Fear had a shape she knew. This was colder. She smoothed his hair, thanked the nurse, and walked him to the car without looking at the fence. In the car she buckled him in and she said, you are going to Grandma's for a few days. Not because you did anything wrong, because I need you somewhere safe while I fix a thing. He looked at her. The waiting man is going to help you fix it. I don't know yet. Yes, he is. He was very sure. That is his job for you. He said so with his mouth when I was 5. She drove. She did not answer that. At Cooper's she called Eleanor, and Eleanor answered on the second ring and said the words Stephanie needed her to say, without needing them explained. Put him on the bus at 4. I'll meet the station. Stephanie booked the 4:15 express to Poughkeepsie and paid extra for a car conductor to keep an eye. Then she called Srayun. Srayun did not answer. Stephanie left a message that used the code word they had chosen at the beginning of the peer lease, the word for, I am not fine and I need the box opened. Then she called Kim. Kim answered on the first ring. Kim said, where? School fence, recess, roughly 1:20 p.m. He gave a name. He referenced the food truck Summer. He used my son's father's surname on my son. Kim said, that is Kwan in person, or a proxy trained by Kwan. He would not send a stranger to a child. I am sending someone to your restaurant, front and back, within the hour. Do not open the back door for anyone you do not personally recognize. Where is the boy going? North. Bus at 4:15. Change the plan. Do not put him on a public bus. He rides the bus, Kim. He knows the drill. It is a public bus with a conductor and 2 hours of daylight. I am telling you the plan is not safe for tonight. Stephanie closed her eyes. She was standing at the pass in a kitchen that had opened 40 minutes late for prep because she was in a car. Marcus was salting bones and pretending not to hear her. She said into the phone, what do you suggest? Private car. 2 men I trust. Boy in a car seat in the middle row, not by a window. Grandmother meets them at the county line, not the station. I have the men. I need you to say yes. She said yes. She hated the word for a full second after it came out. Then she said, Kim, do not put my son near anyone from the Han side. No Han security. No Han driver. 2 of yours or nobody. 2 of mine or nobody. Understood. And Kim. She turned so Marcus could not see her face. Do not tell Min Jae. Not yet. There was one beat of silence on the line. Then Kim said, that is your call. He will ask me directly by tonight. When he asks, I will tell him where the boy is. I will not tell him what I did before the ask. Fair. She hung up. She put the phone face down on the pass. She looked at Marcus. Marcus said, Chef. He said only that. She said, 6 covers off tonight's book. Push everyone else to 8:30. We are shortening the room. Yes, chef. And Marcus. Yes, chef. If a silver-haired man in a dark coat sits at any table in this restaurant tonight, you walk to the pass and tell me the words, shallots. You do not seat him. You do not refuse him. You say we are full. Then you say, shallots. Marcus took 1 full second. Yes, chef. She went into the office off the walk-in and closed the door and sat on the metal chair with her elbows on her knees and let 1 breath out slowly through her teeth. She counted to 4. She let a second breath out. On the 3rd breath, she did not count. On the 3rd breath, the picture she had been holding out of the front of her mind came in and sat with her. And the picture was a chain-link fence at the elementary school and a man's silvered head bending down to speak the surname Han into her boy's ear. She stayed with the picture for the length of a 4th breath, and then she stood up and washed her hands in the tiny office sink and went back into her kitchen. Kim's men came in at 3:11. One was a woman. Both wore plain dark clothes and moved through the room the way plumbers move, like they were there to check something and be done. They did not eat. They did not sit. The woman went to the back alley and stayed. The man took the sidewalk in front and paced 2 blocks in each direction on a 5-minute loop. Marcus watched them and asked no question. Stephanie called the school and left the coded message with Eleanor about the change to a car. Eleanor said one word. Send. The private car came at 3:22. Stephanie carried Elijah to it in her arms, even though he was tall enough now to walk. She strapped him into the car seat herself. She kissed the crown of his head. He said, "Mama." "What?" "Bring the man too. Later. Not now. Later." "Okay, baby. And do not fight the wolf by yourself." She looked at him. He was 5, and he was 5, and he was somehow also a person who understood what a wolf was. She said, "I won't." The car pulled away. Kim's woman gave a small nod from the alley. Stephanie walked back into her restaurant. At 3:50, she took the sealed cream envelope out of the safe under the office desk. She had not opened it. It had lived there since Min Jae set it on the table on the sidewalk in October. She did not open it now either. She held it in one hand as if to weigh it. She put it back in the safe. She closed the door. She turned the dial past 3 numbers she did not need to think about. At 4:30, service started early because 6 covers had eaten prep away from her. She worked the pass. Marcus worked the line. The room hit 2/3 full by 7. It was not a silver-haired man in a dark coat who came in. It was a woman. The woman was in her early 40s, dark-haired, in a black wool coat with a red silk scarf, and she sat alone at the 2 top by the window. The 2 top by the window, the one Stephanie kept quietly untabled on the reservation sheet on Sundays. The woman ordered water. She ordered the short rib. She ate slowly and read a paperback in Korean with a cover Stephanie could not read from where she stood. She was pleasant to the server. She did not look at the pass once. At 8:15, when Stephanie went out to the floor to greet a regular near the door, the woman set her book face down and lifted her glass in a small toast. Not to Stephanie exactly, but in her direction, the way a person lifts a glass to acknowledge a room they had been given permission to enter. Stephanie did not go to her table. She turned to the regular. She spoke about the wine list. She counted, without looking, the seconds between the toast and the folding of the napkin. The woman paid in cash. The woman left an envelope under the water glass with the tip. The woman walked out. Marcus brought the envelope to the pass without opening it. Inside was a business card. On the card was a single line in English. Ms. Han Ji-eun requests 30 minutes at a place of your choosing. On the back, 3 digits and a Manhattan Exchange in blue pen. Marcus said, "Chef." Stephanie said, "Not tonight." She put the card in her back pocket, where the phone had been at 2:41 that afternoon. She went back to the pass. She plated the last 3 tables. She let the room finish itself. She stood at the pass and dressed a fruit tart for the last cover of the night and did not think about the name Han Ji-eun, and did not think about which Han that woman was, sister, cousin, aunt, and did not think about what a Han woman would want with her on a Tuesday night, 3 months after her son had been called by his father's surname through a schoolyard fence. She thought about it in the office at midnight with the door closed and the safe closed. She thought about it while she filled the deposit envelope. She thought about it while she wiped down the pass. She thought about it while she locked the alley door with 2 of Kim's people still on the block. She did not call Min Jae. Kim called at 12:17. Kim's voice was flat, which meant Kim was carrying something heavy. Kim said, "The boy is at your mother's. 2 of mine on the porch until sunrise. Rotation for the week. She has already fed them." "Good. Now the second thing. Snowwolf did not send today's man to the fence." Stephanie sat down on the metal chair. "Snowwolf is not in play right now. My people at the DA say his lawyers filed for a hearing in Delaware on the LLC piece and lost. He has been in ground since April. Today's man walked into the schoolyard on foot. Cameras got him from the corner store. The face is not Kwan's line. Then whose? That is the question. Face is Korean. Age fits. He wore a dark coat and silver hair, which is exactly the description a school teacher would report about anyone with silver hair and a dark coat. He said the word to make you think Kwan. He knew about the truck to make you think Kwan. He knew Han Elijah because Han Elijah is not a private name inside the Han household. Anyone in that house could feed him that name. Someone in that house did. Stephanie put both hands flat on the desk. Kim, Ji-eun, Han Ji-eun. I I know the name. She was in the Times business page in April. She is the cousin who runs the Seoul side. She is currently in New York, as of a week ago, on a corporate filing schedule that has her here through Friday. She has been quiet publicly. She has not sat in the same room as Min Jae since June. Stephanie waited. I do not know what she wants. She did not come to your restaurant tonight to send a threat. She came to look. Sending the man at the fence was a different signal. Whoever sent that man wanted your son to be told his surname is Han. Why? Because a child who knows his surname is Han is a child a court can look at as an heir. That is a thing that moves shares of a family, and there are shares in play. Stephanie closed her eyes. Kim said, I am going to say the next thing carefully. Min Jae's divorce is filed, but not final. Victoria is out, but not dead legally. There is a window this month in which certain assets can be repositioned. In that window, an acknowledged heir simplifies problems. In that window, an unacknowledged heir who becomes acknowledged from the outside, from a fence, from a cousin, from a court filing that names the child, is a lever the family can pull on Min Jae, or against him. Stephanie opened her eyes and looked at the ceiling of her tiny office and did not blink for a long time. Kim said, You called it right earlier. You told me not to tell him. If Jiun knew that today happened before Min Jae knew, that tells us the leak is inside the family and old. Jiun sat in your restaurant less than 5 hours after your son was approached. She wanted you to know she knew. She wanted you to know before Min Jae knew. That is a piece of information about who else is standing behind her. Stephanie said, How many people? At least 2, probably 3. I have names, but I want to sit on them until Friday. Stephanie said, Do you think my son is in danger tonight? Kim said, Tonight, no. Jiun is a message sender, not a knife. The man at the fence was a message. The message is that my son is real and can be named. The message is not that my son will be taken. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet, Stephanie. I do not lie to you about that. I know. There was a silence. Kim broke it. You have not called him. No. Are you going to? I don't know yet. Kim let the silence sit. Then she said, You built a wall 5 months ago called Sundays. You built a door in the wall called Earn the Key. That wall is a good wall and a right wall. Tonight is not about the wall. Tonight is about whether the wall lets the man on the other side pick up a phone when a stranger touches your son's shoulder. Stephanie said, Kim, do not push me. Kim said, I am not pushing you. I am telling you what I am seeing. He filed. His lawyers are moving fast. He gave you the flagship at $1. He has kept every Sunday at 2, and he has left at 3 exactly, every single Sunday since October, and he has never once tried to come on a Tuesday. He is not the leak. He is not standing behind Jiun. I have watched him for you for 5 months because you asked me to, and I am telling you he is doing what he said he would do. Stephanie said, I know. Then decide what tonight is. Stephanie hung up, not to be rude, to think. She sat with the phone in her hand for 11 minutes. She did not look at the safe. She did not look at the business card. She looked at the strip of light under the office door, the strip of light that meant Marcus had left the walk-in light on again because he always forgot the walk-in light. She thought about Elijah in the middle row of a car with a stranger driving and Eleanor at the county line and the words, Bring the man too, later. In a 5-year-old voice. At 12:33 she dialed Min Jae's number. She had never dialed it. She had it because he had put it, at the very bottom of the terms she gave him in October, on a slip of paper folded into the wooden spoon case with the words, For hospital grade only. He picked up on the second ring. He said her name. He said only her name. She said, Someone came to the school fence today and told Elijah his surname is Han. There was a silence on his end that was not surprise. It was the sound of a man being told a thing he had been afraid of every day since April. He said, Where is he now? With my mother, Kim's men on the porch. Where is Kim? Working. She thinks it is not Kwan. She thinks it is inside your house. He said, It is inside my house. Stephanie did not ask him how he knew. She heard it in his voice. He had known for days, maybe weeks. He said, I am at the office. I can be in Poughkeepsie in 90 minutes. Do you want me at your mother's, or do you want me at Cooper's? Cooper's. When? Now. He said, 90 minutes. She said, Min Jae. Yes. You do not come inside. You come to the back alley. You knock the second door, not the first, and you come without a driver, and you come without a coat that says Han to anyone who is watching. Understood. And, Min Jae, yes. Bring the envelope you gave me back. I have not opened it. I do not want to open it tonight. I want you to hold it while we talk. He said, It has been in your safe. I know. I want it in your pocket for 1 hour. He said, Understood. She hung up. She stood. She unlocked the office door. She went to the safe, dialed, opened it, took the cream envelope in her hand, closed the safe, took the envelope to the back alley door where Kim's woman was still standing under the tin awning, and asked the woman to step aside for 1 minute at 1:30 a.m. and to check the alley cameras for 2 minutes before that. The woman nodded. At 1:32 there was a knock, 2 knocks, then a third. She opened the door 6 inches. Min Jae was on the other side in a dark sweater and no coat, and no driver, and no dragon showing above the collar. He held his hands at his sides. She handed him the envelope. He put it in his sweater pocket without looking at it. She stepped aside. He walked in. She led him past the walk-in with the light still on, past the pass, into the small dining room where the chairs were up on the tables. She took 2 chairs down, she sat. He sat. She said, Talk. He said, My aunt in Seoul died in September. My father's second sister. She had shares. The shares went into a trust that reads inheritance by bloodline, not by marriage. Jiun controls the trust as executor. She has known about Elijah since May. She sat on it for 4 months. She is moving now because her window closes on the last business day of this month. If she can prove Elijah's line before the window closes, the trust rebalances toward the Seoul side and away from mine. If she cannot, my side keeps the vote. She sent a man to the fence to build a paper record that a Han child of the New York line has been named as Han in a public setting. She will file next week. If she files with proof and I contest, my divorce court is complicated. If I do not contest, Elijah becomes a named party to a Korean trust proceeding at the age of 5. Neither of those doors is one you want. So I have been trying to close a third door for 6 weeks, and I have not told you because the third door was almost closed and I did not want you to carry the weight for the last 2 weeks. Stephanie said, You lied by not telling. He said, Yes. She said, That is a Sunday problem, not a Tuesday problem. We will get to it Sunday. He said, Understood. She said, Tell me the third door. He said, The third door is Elijah is legally protected by a New York court order that names him a minor, whose custody and identity are under his mother's sole authority, and the order is written to preempt any foreign trust filing on grounds of jurisdiction. If we file the order tomorrow morning and it is granted by Thursday, Jiun's window closes with nothing to file into. Who signs the order? You. Only you. My name is not on it. My lawyer prepared it under your lawyer's name and delivers it to your lawyer at 8 a.m. if you say yes tonight. What does it cost me? Nothing. Not a share of my house, not a share of the restaurant, not a share of Elijah. My name does not appear. It is the opposite of a claim. It is a legal statement that I have no rights to the child unless you affirmatively give them, and that no other Han does either. Stephanie sat with that. She said, You are asking me to sign the paper that erases you from him legally on a Tuesday night at 1:45 in the morning after your cousin sent a stranger to his fence. He said, Yes. And you understand what you are asking. I do. And you are asking it because his safety is the only priority tonight, and the fastest lock on the door is a lock that does not have my name on it. She looked at him. She looked at him for a long time. She did not move her hands. She said, I want to think until 3. You will sit at the pass. You will not speak to me while I think. At 3, I will tell you yes or no. If yes, your lawyer sends the order to my lawyer at 8 and I sign at 9. If no, we build another door together, tonight, in this room, on paper, and neither of us leaves until it is built. He said understood. She stood. She walked to the pass. He followed. She sat him on the stool where Marcus salted bones. She went behind the pass, poured water into 2 glasses, set one in front of him, and did not drink hers. At 2:47, she went to the safe. She took out a legal pad and a pen. She walked back to the pass. She sat opposite him with the legal pad between them. She wrote 3 words at the top of the page. She did not show him yet. At 3, she turned the pad around. The 3 words were, yes, with conditions. Below them, in her handwriting, she wrote the first condition. She did not read it aloud. She slid the pad across the wood. He read it. He did not react. He picked up the pen. Outside, the alley door creaked as Kim's woman shifted her weight. Inside, the walk-in light hummed the way it had hummed every night since October, and above the pass, taped to the wall where only Stephanie could see it from where she stood, was the small photograph of Elijah at 4 with cornbread on his mouth, and under that photograph, in a pocket over her heart, was the wooden spoon from Kyungju, and in Min-jae's sweater pocket was the cream envelope she had not opened, and on the legal pad between them was the first line of a rule that would decide who her son would be at 6. She said, "Read them all before you sign anything." He said, "I will read them all." She said, "And Min-jae." "Yes. If Jiun ever gets within a block of my son again, you and I are not talking about doors on paper anymore." He looked at her across the pass. He said, "Understood." He picked up the pen. She watched his hand move down the page, and outside Kim's woman lit a match for a cigarette she would not smoke, and the flame flared once against the brick and went out, and somewhere north her son was asleep with his mini Avental folded on the chair. He wrote for 11 minutes. She watched the pen, not his face. When he set it down, he slid the pad back across the pass without turning it, and she read what he had signed. He had initialed her first condition without changing a word. Below it, he had added 3 lines in his own hand. The first line said he would not enter any school, park, or public place her son used, on any day, for any reason, until Elijah himself named the day. The second line said he would give up the 2-top by the window if she wanted the 2-top back. The third line said the cream envelope in his sweater pocket was hers, to open on any day of any year, and if she never opened it, that was also an answer. She looked at the 3 lines for a long time. Then she wrote her second condition below them. "You tell me the names Kim is holding," she said, "tonight, not Friday." He waited. "You have carried this for 6 weeks. I can carry it for 6 hours. 2 of them are staff," he said. "1 of them is family. Names." He said the names. A driver who had been with the East Wing 11 years. A junior accountant at the Han Group who had a sister-in-law working under Ji-eun in Seoul. A cousin on his father's side who had signed nothing on the trust and had nothing to gain, but resented that Min-jae had lived when the older brother had not. He said the names flat, the way a man reads a shopping list, because that was the only way to say them without breaking the pass. "The driver first," she said. "He drove Elijah on Wednesday to the pier when he was 3 months old. I remember that man. He was kind to my son. He was paid. When? 2 years ago. Ji-soon set up the account. He has been on it since." She poured water into 2 glasses and pushed one across. He drank. She did not. She wrote her third condition on the pad. The third condition said, "No Han name touches Elijah in any legal document, ever. Not as father, not as guardian, not as beneficiary, not as emergency contact. If Elijah wanted the name when he was old enough to know what the name meant, he could ask for it himself, in a court, with his own lawyer, on his own day." Min-jae read the line twice. He initialed it. "You understand what you just signed," she said. "Yes. Your family trust rebalances against your side forever. There is no version of this where you claim him and keep your share of Seoul." "Yes. You will not come back next year and say you changed your mind." "No." She wrote the fourth condition. This one took her longer. She wrote it, crossed a word out, wrote it again. When she was done, she turned the pad and let him read. The fourth condition said, "Sundays continue. The 2-top continues. The 6 months continues from the start, not from today," which meant 3 of the 7 he had already earned were being taken back and put on the table again. The 7th Sunday had been earned. The others were earned once and had to be earned twice. He looked up. "Because you hid the trust for 6 weeks," she said. "You did not lie, but you did not tell. A man who watches me handle a knife across a pass is not allowed to keep a fire under my kitchen and call it a Sunday problem. It becomes a Sunday problem when I know about it. I understand. I do not want you to understand. I want you to sit through it." He nodded. He picked up the pen. He initialed. Then, without asking, He wrote a line of his own below the 4 conditions. It said, "For every Sunday I miss because I chose to miss it, I will not come back the next Sunday, or the one after, and the 6 months restart from 0. She read the line, and after a moment she wrote the word accepted beside it. Kim's woman lit a second match outside, and the flame flared and went out again. The pass held the two of them, and the pad and the water glass, and nothing else that mattered. "Now the driver," Stephanie said. He took out his phone. He typed a message in Korean and sent it. He put the phone face down on the pad. "He will be at a private airfield in Newburgh at 7, he said. "One of my lawyers will meet him. He will be flown to Seoul this afternoon. He will not come back. He will keep his family. He will lose the account." And the accountant. Terminated at 9, escorted from the building, a non-compete he cannot fight. The sister-in-law is Ji-eun's problem. "And your cousin?" He was quiet. "Min-jae. I want a night." "You do not have a night. He is my brother's son. He is 14. She had not known. The name he had said was a name. She had not asked the age. She looked at him and she understood that the third leak was a boy the age of a middle schooler, and she saw the small movement in his jaw that she remembered from a kitchen 5 years ago, the movement of a man about to say something that would cost him a piece of himself. "He has a mother?" she said. "She is my brother's widow. She has raised him alone since he was 6. You will call her at 7 your time. You will tell her what her son did. You will offer her a school in Vancouver. Boarding, paid. He goes on Thursday. If she says no, you take the offer off the table and you do not offer it again. If she says yes, he never comes back to Seoul and he never opens a Han email again. Vancouver. Or Melbourne. Whichever her sister lives closer to. She has a sister, Min-jae. Every widow has a sister." He wrote the word Vancouver on the pad next to the 4th condition. He drew a small arrow to the cousin's name. Then he closed his eyes for the length of a breath and opened them again, and she saw the piece of himself that had come loose settle into a new place. "There is one more," he said. "Ji-eun. She will call you at 9. She will ask for 30 minutes. She will offer money for silence. She will offer to leave the country tomorrow if you sign a paper naming Elijah as a Han beneficiary of a smaller share, one that she controls as executor. She has already had the paper drafted." "How do you know?" "Because I would have done it in her place." She wrote a 5th condition on the pad. It said, "The meeting with Ji-eun happens here, in this restaurant, at 4 p.m., not at a place of her choosing." It said, "Kim is in the room." It said, "No paper crosses the table." He initialed it. At 6 a.m. she walked him to the alley door. Kim's woman was gone. The shift had rolled. A new man on the corner tipped his hat and looked away. Min-jae did not touch her. He did not put on the cream envelope. He took it out of his sweater pocket and handed it to her at the threshold. "Yours," he said. "As it has been, as it is." She took it. She did not open it. She put it in the inside pocket of the apron over her heart, next to the spoon that had been in that pocket for 4 months. "Sunday," she said. "Sunday." She closed the door. She turned the lock. She stood in the alley kitchen with 2 cold objects against her chest, and a legal pad on the pass covered in her handwriting and his. She walked back to the pass and read what they had signed one more time. Then she took a photograph of every page with her phone and sent them to Kim. At 8 a.m., the lawyer's courier arrived with the New York court order in a blue folder. She signed the order at the pass, standing, with the same pen Min-jae had used. The judge's clerk called at 11 to confirm the filing. The judge signed it at 1. By 2 p.m., Elijah Cooper was a minor under the sole legal authority of his mother, and no foreign trust in Seoul, London, or Grand Cayman could file a claim on a child who did not legally exist in their jurisdiction as a Han. Ji-eun called at 9 minutes past 3. Stephanie answered. "Chef Cooper. 4 o'clock. My restaurant. You know the door." "I know the door." She hung up. At 4 p.m., Ji-eun walked in through the front. She wore the same black wool coat and the same red silk scarf. She carried no bag. She stopped at the maitre d' station and waited to be seated. Stephanie let her wait for 1 minute, which was longer than any Han had been made to wait in that room. Then she came out of the kitchen in the maroon apron and led Ji-eun herself to a 2-top at the back, near the wine cellar, out of the sight line of the dining room. Kim was already at the next table with a coffee she was not drinking. Ji-eun sat. She folded her hands on the table. Coffee? Stephanie said. No, thank you. Water? No. Stephanie sat. She did not sit across from Ji-eun. She sat at the diagonal, which put her closer to the door of the wine cellar than to the guest. Ji-eun noticed and did not comment. You have 30 minutes, Stephanie said. Ji-eun looked at her for a long time. She had a face that had been drawn by people who wanted to be trusted with money. He is my cousin's son, Ji-eun said. He is my son. He is both. He is one. Stephanie put her hands flat on the table. You came near a school. That is the only sentence of yours I have listened to today. I did not send the man. You sent the money that paid the man. Yes. Then you sent the man. Ji-eun accepted the sentence with a small tilt of her head. She did not argue it. She had come to negotiate. She was not going to spend her 30 minutes proving what everyone in the room already knew. I have a paper, Ji-eun said. I know. I will not open my bag. You have no bag. Ji-eun almost smiled. I have a paper in my coat. May I take it out? No. They looked at each other. Kim, at the next table, turned a page of a menu she had already read. You want something from me, Stephanie said. You did not come here to explain yourself. Say the sentence. I want the boy to keep his name. He has his name. Cooper? The other name. He does not have the other name. He carries the blood. Blood is not a document. It is where I come from. It is not where he is going. Ji-eun looked down at her folded hands. When she looked up again, the mask had slipped a millimeter, and Stephanie saw something behind it that she had not expected. A woman who had been running a family the size of a small country for 11 years without a name of her own on the door. You do not know what it took, Ji-eun said, to hold what my uncle left. I know what it took me to hold my son. I do not owe you the comparison. You could have both. He can have both when he is 21 and asks for both. Today he has one. The trust closes on Friday. I know. After Friday, the shares in Seoul rebalance against my cousin's side of the family. He loses influence. His people lose salaries. 300 people lose salaries. That is his sentence to carry, not mine. He signed a court order this morning that guarantees it. He did. For a woman who runs a restaurant. Stephanie held Ji-eun's eyes. She let the silence sit long enough that Ji-eun understood the sentence had been a mistake before Stephanie said anything about it. For a child, Stephanie said, not for a woman. If you cannot see the difference from where you are sitting, you will not see it from any other seat. Ji-eun sat back. She uncrossed her hands. She placed them on her knees under the table, and Stephanie knew from that motion, from the way a woman puts her hands out of sight when she has finished a hand, that the negotiation was over. I will not come back, Ji-eun said. You will not come to this state. You will not come to Massachusetts. You will not come to New Jersey. You will not send a person, an email, or a letter. If you have a question about my son, you may ask his father, and his father will tell you the same thing I told you. If you cannot bear that, the court order is on file, and it names 3 states and 8 countries. Understood. 30 minutes have not passed. They have not. Use them for something you will not regret. Ji-eun looked at the table. Then she looked up. He looks like the older brother, she said. The one who died. Not like Min-jae. Like the other one. I saw the school photo on the driver's phone. That is why I could not let it go. I loved that brother. Stephanie did not answer for a moment. She had not been prepared for a sentence with grief inside it. She had prepared for money. She had prepared for law. She had not prepared for a woman who had loved a dead boy and had gone looking for his face in her son's. He is his own face, Stephanie said, softer than she had planned. He is not a replacement for anyone. I know that now. Then you have used the 30 minutes. Ji-eun stood. She smoothed her coat. At the door, she turned once. Chef Cooper. Ms. Han. He is a very lucky boy. He is a very tired boy who has an early bedtime. Go home. Ji-eun went. Kim followed her to the sidewalk and watched her get into a car. The car left. Kim came back inside and sat down at the pass and drank the coffee she had not touched. Well, Kim said. Well? She meant it. She meant the grief. Grief is not a contract. She meant the not coming back because I put 3 countries in front of her. I will trust the countries. Kim smiled. That is why I like you, chef. I know why you like me. You like getting paid. That too. They laughed for 1 second, and the second was the first laugh Stephanie had let herself have since 2:41 p.m. the day before. At 6 p.m., she called Eleanor. Elijah picked up. Mama. Hey, help her. Grandma says you are coming Saturday. I am. Are you bringing anyone? She had known the question was coming. She had known it since 1:32 a.m., when Min Jae had walked into the alley without a coat and without a driver. She had known it since Elijah had said, bring the man too, later. Not now, later, on Tuesday. Do you want me to? She said. Not Saturday. Okay. But Sunday. Sunday at Grandma's? Yes, for lunch. Not dinner. Grandma says dinner is too fancy for me right now. Lunch is okay. He has to eat what Grandma makes. He does not get to bring a chef thing. She sat down on the crate by the walk-in and put her hand over her eyes. He will eat what Grandma makes, she said. He will not bring a chef thing. Okay? Elijah. Yes. You know who he is. Yes. How long have you known? There was a small silence. She heard her mother's radio in the background and a spoon against a bowl. She heard her son thinking. She heard him choose the answer he wanted, not the answer that would please her. Since he sat at the two-top the second time, Elijah said, the way he looked at my letters. Nobody looks at somebody's letters like that unless what? Unless it is somebody theirs. She could not speak for a moment. Eleanor took the phone gently. Baby. Mama. You come Saturday. We will make cornbread Saturday. He comes Sunday. I will make the chicken. If he does not eat the chicken, he does not come back. You tell him. I will tell him. And baby. Yes. You did a very hard thing today. I do not know what it was. I do not want to know until Sunday when everybody has slept. But I felt it in my bones at 3 o'clock. You come. You sleep in my house Saturday. You do not think about the restaurant Saturday. You let your sous chef burn the pier down if he wants to. You come. I am coming. She hung up. She sat on the crate for a long time. Then she stood, because the dinner service began in 40 minutes, and there were 40 covers on the books, and one of those covers was a food critic who had promised to be quiet about the review and would not be. The service went. Nobody at the pier flagship knew that the morning had reshaped a trust in Seoul, terminated a driver, terminated an accountant, sent a 14-year-old boy toward Vancouver, and closed a door in front of a woman in a red scarf. The 42 covers ate, drank, tipped, and left. At 11 p.m., Stephanie locked the front and walked back to the pass and took the cream envelope out of the apron pocket over her heart. She looked at it for a long time. Wax with no dragon. Her name on the front in his careful hand. The seal had softened at the edges from being carried for 4 months against her body. She opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. On the paper was a single sentence, in ink that had not been rewritten. It said, if you ever want a man to belong to you the way a spoon belongs to a hand, ask me, and I will spend the rest of my life earning the shape. Under the sentence was his name. Under his name was a date from 4 months ago, the day he had set the envelope on the sidewalk after the children's contest. She read the sentence 3 times. She folded the paper. She put it back in the envelope. She put the envelope back in the pocket over her heart. She did not answer it that night. She would not answer it that year. But she took a photograph of the sentence and sent it to Kim with 3 words, for the file. Kim wrote back 1 word, understood. On Saturday, she drove up to Eleanor's house with Elijah's laundry basket and Elijah's book bag and a paper bag of scallions from the pier kitchen. They made cornbread together. Elijah ate 3 squares. He asked what the man's name was, out loud, at the table, at 7 in the evening, with the radio on. His name is Han Min Jae, she said. That is not a New York name. No. That is a Seoul name. Yes. Am I a Seoul name? You are a Cooper. You are your own name. Okay. He went back to eating. Eleanor watched her granddaughter across the table with the eyes of a woman who had been waiting for this dinner for 6 years. Sunday at noon, Min Jae drove up alone in a rental sedan. He wore no coat. He carried a covered dish of something Eleanor could not have expected, a small clay pot of the same 7-hour bone broth he had eaten in a mansion kitchen once at 2 in the morning, made in the small hours of that Sunday in a rented kitchen, because he had not been allowed to bring anything from a restaurant. He set the pot on the counter. Eleanor tasted it with a wooden spoon. "It needs salt," Eleanor said. "Yes, ma'am." "Sit down." He sat down. Elijah sat across from him. Stephanie sat at the head of the table between her mother and her son. Nobody said grace. Eleanor served the chicken. Min-jae ate the chicken. He ate 2 helpings. Elijah watched him eat. "Are you going to marry my mom?" Elijah said between bites. Min-jae set his fork down. He looked at Stephanie. Stephanie looked at her son. "When you say yes," Min-jae said to Elijah, "and when your mother says yes, in that order. When I say yes, when you say yes. That could be a long time. I will wait." Elijah chewed. He swallowed. He looked at his grandmother, who did not help him. He looked at his mother, who did not help him. He picked up his spoon and looked at it, the small wooden spoon he carried in his apron pocket at the restaurant. "Not this year," Elijah said. "Come back next year. If Grandma still lets you eat her chicken next year, we can talk about it then." Eleanor made a small sound that was almost a laugh. "That is fair," Min-jae said. "It is fair," Elijah said. "You said fair. That means you said yes to fair." "I said yes to fair." They ate. Stephanie ate. The clay pot of broth cooled on the counter. Nobody asked for it. It sat there like a proof of something that did not need to be tasted to be trusted. That night, driving back down the river with Elijah asleep in the back seat in his mini apron with the maroon straps, Stephanie thought about the 4 months the envelope had traveled against her chest, and about the sentence inside it, and about the shape of a spoon and the shape of a hand. She did not have an answer. She did not need one. The road bent along the water. Her son breathed evenly. The city glow began to rise in the south. At the pier apartment, she carried him up 2 flights and put him in his bed. She hung the mini apron on the chair. She closed his door halfway, the way he liked it, so that a stripe of hall light lay across the floor. She took the spoon out of the pocket over her heart. She took the cream envelope out of the pocket over her heart. She placed them side by side on the kitchen counter. She stood with her hands on the counter and looked at them for the length of one breath. Then she opened the drawer beside the stove, the drawer where she kept the 2 things she had brought from the mansion in the second suitcase, 5 years and 8 months ago, and had never used since. She reached to the back. She took out the small enamel pot her grandmother had given her mother, and her mother had given her. She put the spoon inside the pot. She put the envelope beside the spoon. She closed the lid. She set the pot on the counter next to the salt. Tomorrow was Monday. Monday was not a Sunday, so it did not count against him. But Monday was a day, and on Monday morning she would open the pot and take the spoon out and use it to stir the 7-hour broth she started every Monday at 6 a.m., because the 7-hour broth was the anchor of the Pier flagship kitchen, and no other spoon in the world made it taste right. The envelope would stay in the pot. It would stay there for a year. It would stay there for 2. One day she would take it out. That day would be her day. Not his, not her mother's, not her son's, hers. And on that day, whichever day it was, she would answer the sentence with a sentence of her own, in her own hand, on her own paper, in her own ink. And she would put the answer in the pot, and close the lid, and go to the stove to stir the broth with the spoon that had been carved by a 60-year-old man, in Kyungju, with 2 letters on the handle. And whatever the answer was, it would be the answer of a woman who had asked no man to save her, and had let one sit at her table when he had learned to eat what her mother cooked. She turned off the kitchen light. The pot stayed on the counter, next to the salt. The broth would start at 6. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever walked out of a place holding a truth nobody was ready to see, and built your own name from the ashes of theirs? Have you ever recognized someone you love in the small dimples of a child's smile? And when the man who broke you finally came back, did you choose the hand that reached for you, or the woman you had already become without him? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, motherhood, and hidden truths, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.